Lewis Hamilton, now at Ferrari, dares to dream of a record 8th F1 world title. The Tifosi will be hoping the Brits can bring glory back to Italy. To many, Ferrari and Formula One are inseparable. They're the only team in the sport today to have competed in the first World Championship in 1950, are the most successful team in history and have built some absolutely gorgeous cars. Their first driver's title was won in 1952 by Alberto Ascari. Considered one of F1's most dominant and best-loved champions, he drove the iconic Ferrari 500 and defended his title the year after. It was Juan Manuel Fangio in his Ferrari 250 who secured the team's next driver's title in 1956. Remember, he was world champion 5 times with 4 different teams. Mike Hawthorne, Phil Hill and John Surtees also won titles for Ferrari in the 50s and 60s, and the cars back then were beautiful, and they even sounded great, didn't they? Anyway, Ferrari went 11 years without winning a title until Niki Lauda won in 1975 in the iconic 312T. Throughout much of the 80s and 90s, though, Ferrari looked like they'd never go all the way again. Le Professeur Alain Prost came pretty close in 1990, but lost out to his bitter rival and former teammate at McLaren, Ayrton Senna. It was only when John Todt recruited a swathe of staff from outside of Italy, including Michael Schumacher, that the glory days returned 21 years after their last driver's title. The turn of the century saw the prancing horse sprint to an unprecedented 5 consecutive championship doubles. And after Schumacher left, Kimi Raikkonen reclaimed the driver's title immediately. But despite employing 1,500 people, the Iceman remains the last Ferrari world champion. So, 16 constructors' titles, 7 more than McLaren, and 15 drivers' titles, 4 more than, again, McLaren. Ferrari are truly Formula One's top team. Forza Ferrari.
Welcome to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, and the former 3-weight world champion, Duke McKenzie. We've got a massive 3 hours coming your way. We build towards the highly anticipated rematch between Ben Whittaker and Liam Cameron. Should it be 10 rounds? Should it be 12? That's one of the big questions tonight. The Omen, Spencer Oliver himself, will join us live from Birmingham as we continue our in-depth preview of tomorrow night's showdown. And we'll also be joined by the Celtic Warrior Steve Collins live in the studio as the countdown continues to one of British boxing's fiercest rivalries. It is Conor Benn against Chris Eubank Jr. That goes down next week at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And don't forget, you can hear every punch live right here on talkSPORT tomorrow night as Whittaker against Cameron 2 takes centre stage in Birmingham. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT.
When Ben Whittaker and Liam Cameron crashed over the ropes in the Kingdom Arena out in Riyadh, that was the spark that lit this fire.
I went to shake his hand and said, all right, and he just blanked me, so I thought, oh, it's on now.
I didn't even see him, to be fair.
He did, he looked me straight in the eyes.
I must have missed that nose.
He's not learned, though, is he?
Fighter, whoa, and wait a minute! They've gone Royal Rumble WWE style.
Ben Whittaker was looking out of sorts before this happened.
Both guys seem to be injured here.
This bout is a technical decision split draw.
The Sky commentators, they can't say, but I'll say it looked like he bowled it.
If the Champions League, he's Brest, Real Madrid. He got a draw. and he's running away with it.
We've signed for a 12-round fight. They're trying to push it for a 10-round. They're doing everything they can, and I'm not budging.
We know what's going on. They want to play games. Well, it's a 10-round fight, and I agreed that in writing. This is the Ben Whittaker show.
So on the 20th of April, Easter Sunday, we go again. The rematch is on.
Hustle. They do go again. They go again tomorrow night. A thrill to have you, Duke McKenzie, 3-weight world champion, alongside me tonight. These two a long way off from that standard. But what a night we've got tomorrow night. And it's all been created by what happened in that first fight. No one could really see this coming. It was just the most bizarre ending to the fight. And it's really led to all of this.
You know, the last time I saw anything like that was when Riddick Bowe boxed and went over the top of the rope. And that's the last time I saw anything like that. And that was very controversial. And now it's happened again. You sort of say to yourself, you know, how did it happen? Why did it happen? And when you actually look at it, because I've watched this several times since it's happened, you know, they went back to the ropes, and it was an accident. That's the only way you can describe it. It was accidental. It wasn't intentional. You can question whether the rope should have been tight enough. You can question also whether Whittaker, you know, as he leant over the ropes, Cameron was straight on top of him. So the body weight just pushed him over. He landed heavily, Whittaker, and that knocks the stuffing out of you. And, you know, they could have given him time to recover and get back into the ring. But, you know, he said that he twisted his ankle. And I believe everything that he said. I don't think there was any quit in him. I don't think there's any dog in that boy at all. He's too much of a good fighter. He's a really good fighter. He's a good young fighter. And I think he's going to really do a job on Cameron this time.
So that's the way that you see it going. It is the classic clash of styles, isn't it? The Olympic silver medalist, of course, who threw his silver medal away pretty much. He refused to wear it, Ben Whittaker, with all of that brilliant amateur skill against Liam Cameron. What a life he has led. What an extraordinary comeback. His personal story is just something else, isn't it? Really, really special. But very different kinds of fighters. Whittaker doesn't believe they're at the same level, but if Liam Cameron drags him into that kind of fight again, then it's trouble for Ben, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, this is what makes his fight so interesting and entertaining. Has Whittaker learnt from the first fight? Can he adjust from the first fight? Can Cameron drag him back into a long fight? Is it 10 rounds? Is it 12 rounds? You know, there's so many sort of questions to be answered, but I'm sure you were going to get a stellar performance from Whittaker.
You've mentioned, is it 10 rounds? Is it 12? Let's get into this, Stu. This is not something that we should be debating, but let's get into it because it happened. They both signed contracts for different lengths of fight. Now, Cameron says he's been paid what he says is an absolute fortune to switch from 12 to 10 because 12 would have suited him, of course. The fighter has been 12 twice, the more durable fighter, the more experienced fighter, and he says he's been paid a fortune to switch. He says Whittaker should have called his bluff and said, I'll fight you over 12 and I'll fight you over any distance you want. What do you think about that?
Maybe he should have, but first and foremost, we have to address it, and you've got to say to yourself, why didn't Ben Shalom iron this out from the outset? Why has it allowed it to go this far? Because this can play on your fighter's mind. It really can. You know, you just want to be concentrating on the fight itself, not how many rounds you're going to do. That's ironed out straight away. When you sign a contract for a fight, you know whether it's going to be 10 or whether it's going to be 12. And Ben's kind of set himself up, you know, to get beat down by the likes of Warren and Hearn, who just slaps it on him and are giving him so much stick for not having this ironed out. You know, so we know it's going to be 10 rounds. We know that on paper that should favour Whittaker because he hasn't been in a 12-round fight. He's never done a 12-round duration fight. So, but you know, can he do the 10 rounds? And you know, this is going to be a good fight for him because he's going to have to pull out all the stops. He's going to have to really. I don't expect him to win. I expect him to win well. It's not a question of whether he wins on points. Not looking for a points decision. This guy's got and has been built up to be the next big thing in world boxing. Let's get that right. He's going to be the next big superstar. So he's got to go out and really show the world, not this country, the world, what he's really capable of.
Now, there's been a big change for Whittaker since that first fight. He's now with Andy Lee. He says for longer than we think they've been working together. We'll have to take his word for that. He says they've been working together for a while. Now, Andy Lee's done an extraordinary job with Joseph Parker, of course, Paddy Donovan as well. He has those Kronk genes as well. As the spirit of Emmanuel Stewart is very much with him. Andy Lee has got a lot to work with Whittaker. There's so much natural talent. Will you expect to see improvements from that?
There has to be improvements because when you've got somebody that is as talented as Whittaker, then he should be able to adjust. Now, the fact that he's picked a new coach will tell you that his previous coach could only take him so far. So, Andy Lee's a no-nonsense type. He's a proper old-school coach, I would imagine, given his sort of pedigree. And I expect to see massive changes in Ben Whittaker, because I don't think for 1 minute Andy Lee's going to stand for showboating and fooling around and all that. He's got to get to work and just absolutely go out there and do a number on Cameron, if he can.
Is there a route to victory for Cameron? You obviously favour Whittaker, but Cameron has to drag him into that real war, doesn't he?
Sure. Listen, Cameron knows he's getting a career's best payday, they tell me, right? So he's getting a taste of not only the limelight, but now he's getting a taste of the money. He's a wily old fox, and he will do everything in his power, I'm sure, to drag Whittaker into a dogfight. Whittaker will get off to a good start. It's whether or not Whittaker can maintain that good start throughout the duration of the fight. I don't think that a points victory is going to suffice in this particular fight because of the controversy that surrounded the first fight. Whittaker has to stop this guy, and he's got to look good stopping him. It's not just a question of cutting him up or, getting an 8, 9, 10 and the referee stopping the fight on cuts. He has to go out there and really cement his class on this fight and look good doing it.
It's just incredible the way this fight has captured the imagination. You would never have guessed. If I'd said to you, I don't know, last July, we're all going to be here previewing Ben Whittaker against Liam Cameron 2, and everyone's going to be excited. They've sold so many tickets for the Resorts World Arena tomorrow night, pretty much sold out. Ben Shalom says, it's funny, the sport, isn't it?
Listen, the sport of boxing is funny. When you look at this social media world that we live in now, it's very easy to sell fights. And, Whittaker is his own, he drives his own ship. He is a showman by choice, and he knows how to sell a fight. The fact that there's been the controversy with this fight, the backflip, the bad blood between these two, this fight really has sold itself. And, these aren't the best two light heavyweights, in the world. They're not. But what they bring to this fight, you couldn't get it unless it was for a world title fight. So I'm looking forward to it, and I will be watching it, because there's going to be a lot going on, I'm sure.
Yeah, Whittaker Cameron, the rematch this Easter Sunday on the talkSPORT Network and talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. Up next, we're going to be joined live from Birmingham by the O-Man himself. I can't wait to talk to Spencer Oliver, who's got a special guest with him as we continue our build-up to the highly anticipated rematch between Whittaker and Cameron. You're listening to Fight Night on talkSPORT. And welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, and the former three-weight world champion, Duke McKenzie. Never gets tired of hearing that, and nor would I. He's alongside me, and it is a real pleasure to say we're now joined live from Birmingham by the Omen himself, my old friend Spencer Oliver. I last saw you in Paris at the Olympics. What fun we had there, and we won an award as well, Spencer. It was fun, wasn't it? It was good stuff. Great to see you, mate.
Yeah, great to see you, Dave, and Duke as well, mate. And listen, you took the words out of my mouth because I was going to mention that the SJA awards that we won out there for the coverage that we done on the Olympics. What a time we had out there, and what commentary, must say. It was brilliant, David. It was great working with you. So glad you're back on here, mate.
Thanks very much indeed. We'll keep bigging each other up, Duke and Fraser. Fraser's sitting alongside you. Thanks for joining us. And Spencer, I'll let you take it away and have a chat with Fraser Clark. Great to see you. And of course, we wish you luck for tomorrow night. But Spencer, you just take that away with Fraser and talk him through tomorrow night what you think.
Yeah, I will do, guys. And yeah, I'm just joined by Fraser. Fraser, great as always, mate, seeing you. And you know, the injury was only 6 months ago or so. Yeah, it was quite a substantial injury that you had there. We saw it out there. How is the recovery, mate?
Yeah, Spencer, I've not made no bones about it. It was a difficult time. Thankfully, what you guys seen on TV and the actual injury, it was a bit chalk and cheese. Like, the injury was a lot better than it looked on the TV. You know, I had a fracture in my cheekbone, which is something I've had before in my career. Thankfully, it healed really well last time, and thankfully again, it's healed really good this time. You know, I've had look after look at it by experts, and they tell me it's absolutely fine. It was a bit nerve-wracking the first spar back in January, but ever since then, we've got loads of rounds in with loads of good people. It's been tested a few times. Granted, that's in bigger gloves, but as far as I'm concerned, it's 100%.
Fraser, I've got to give you respect, mate, because you're coming back here, and Ebenezer Teti, who we last saw boxing Dillian White, he lost in 7 rounds, but he caused him a few problems at times. Quite awkward, very heavy-handed. 20 of his 23 victories have come inside the distance, and you're coming back off an injury. You pick a guy who's clearly heavy-handed, so you obviously wanted that test. You didn't want to, there was a lot easier options to come back with than Teti.
There was easier options, Spencer, but the top and bottom of it is, I think, I speak for myself and I speak for a lot of other fighters. It's not as easy to just knock over these guys that you're supposed to knock over in 1 or 2 rounds. I prefer personally more of a challenge, someone that really makes you think, this could be interesting. We've actually been watching, me and the team. We've been watching some of his knockouts rather than him getting beat. We've been watching some of his knockouts, and I think that was half to put a bit of fear into me.
Yeah.
And it just made me think, you've got to be on your game here. You've got to be sharp. You've got to be switched on and protect yourself. Because if you do let this guy get momentum, he can be a real handful.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Duke, I want to bring you in on this one, mate. You're a former fighter yourself. You've had injuries before, nothing to this sort of extent. But was you surprised to see Fraser back in the ring as quickly as he was?
Yeah. Hi, Fraser. How you doing, champ? Okay.
How you doing, Duke? All right, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yeah. Obviously, it was a shocking injury that you sustained, and you won't know how you're going to react until or if you get nailed with a shot. I know you said you struggled with the recovery, so that was more psychological than physical.
Yeah, that was more psychological, Duke. The one thing I will say to everyone, and this is to a lot of people who have been speaking to me, and I get everyone's doing their job, or the media, but all questions will be answered in the ring, I think, and that's as much for everyone else as it will for me. Mm-hmm. Like I said, there's one thing sparring in big 18, 20-ounce gloves and taking a shot with a head guard on, to being hit flush with a 10-ounce glove on in the middle of a fight off a big man. So I think all questions will be answered, like I say, tomorrow in the fight. But the psychological side for a fighter, it's so important. It's such a difficult place to come from. Thankfully, having good people around me and honest people around me has been a real help for myself. So I'm going to take the momentum I've had from the last few weeks. I had a couple of weeks out in Saudi Arabia with Joseph Parker, helping him. That really brought me along and put me in a good place. Speaking to Joseph Parker after the knockbacks I had in his career, that really helped me. I got a real good insight to what it takes to come back, the mindset, the physical, the changes that need to be made, and I've made a lot of them.
Fraser, it's Dave here in the studio as well. You would never guess that you've got a big comeback fight tomorrow night from your demeanour. You look so calm and cool and collected sitting alongside Spencer. You could be two friends having a drink on a Saturday night. Where does that come from? Is that inner confidence? How do you prepare mentally? How are you so calm ahead of what is a big night for you?
Well, I think Duke and Spencer will both know the sort of mannerisms you carry in a fight week really do depend on the work you've done in the previous 7, 8, 9, 10. And the work I've done has been really good work, so that gives me a huge lot of confidence, knowing that, you know, I've put the work in. I feel great physically, mentally. I'm doing everything that's been asked of myself. I'm reading a lot of positive stuff. I'm feeling very confident in my ability, in my strength, in my fitness, and in my durability. So, you know, all that work during camp really pays off in these weeks, which has allowed me to, you know, come down and speak with people, have some nice conversations, and like I say, I'll just take all this positive energy which I've got into the fight.
Also, Fraser, I'd like to ask you, you know, you mentioned earlier that you'd sparred with Joe Parker, right? And, you know, and he's on the fringe of a world title fight. You know, mixing in that sort of company, that would lend your confidence knowing the good as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, just to be there, we can't take too much from sparring. We always say this, but I think you do get a level and idea of where you're at. And I'd say for me and my confidence, you know, and I think I really held my own and give Joe some great work leading into his fight with Martin Bacoli. Not just that, I think the most important thing about going in and seeing how these guys that are on fringe world level train is exactly that. You know, you start picking up little subtle things that they do, the way that they go to sleep, the way that they rest, the way that they keep drinking water through the day, and just the professionalism. So there was so much to take from that, but definitely I gained a lot of confidence from that sparring and just being in the environment.
You know what, Fraser, I wanted to ask you, mate, look, being around you for the last few days, and you are in a great headspace, you know, and like with what you've been through, and you've tested yourself, you've been there, and you've been mixing in this high caliber sparring, etc., etc. A happy fighter is a dangerous fighter, and you really are a happy fighter going in, coming off the back of what you've done, mate, and that's testament to you as an individual doing that.
Yeah, I think you have to. It's a lot of acceptance as well. So, listen, I accept the first fight me and Fabio had was a great fight. The second one, I had to accept that, you know, I made a mistake in the fight and I got punished for it. And I think once you accept that, you know that this is heavyweight boxing, you can sort of not put it behind you, because as a fighter, you know yourself, a loss is always it's always burning me. But in order to move forward, you have to move on, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Listen, a loss can mould a fighter. Duke McKenzie's talked about that before with me. He talked about when he went out to France and lost for the European title. He went on to win 3 world titles at different weights, so that's what it done for him as a fighter. You know, and I think that someone like yourself, you rebuild from that. You take it and you go and work on the stuff that is, you know, you done wrong in that fight, the switching off moment, and you pull it right. You know, you come through this fight as we expect you're going to do, and you look good in doing that. You know, David Adelaide, he's just picked up that British title. I know he's got to go over old ground again, you know, in his fight, but someone like that, are they in the horizon anytime soon?
I mean, I think obviously when I do the business tomorrow, and then we look at, you know, the British title scene, I think it makes sense for all parties, really. I think we're all about floating around the same level, and probably the winner of that will go on, you know, to the next level sort of thing. I don't want to speak too much on them guys, you know, they've got their own stuff coming up, and I've got to concentrate on Tete, because without getting that job done properly, you know, none of that is even a conversation. But I'd say 100%, you know, for myself, Jamie TKV or David Adelaide, whoever is to come through their next fight, I think it'd be great business. And to be honest, I think, like I say, we're all at the same sort of level, around the same table. It shouldn't be too hard to do business.
Who do you expect to come through that?
Well, I think if Adelaide changes, because last time I think he was getting beat quite convincingly by TKV. So if he makes the changes, from what I've seen in his firepower, I expect him to. But you know, Jamie's going to have a lot of confidence after that fight, you know, and I think he could have even been better on the night. So if he improves as well, it's a very interesting fight. You know, I'm not. When I seen the finish from Adelaide, it was impressive. You know, the way he put him away. But during the rounds, you know, I think Jamie will definitely back himself to go in there and do a good job on points.
Fraser, just finally from me in the studio, thank you so much for your time. Have you visualised tomorrow night what's going to happen? And if so, can you talk us through it? How do you see it going tomorrow night against Tete?
The visualisation is something that I actually added to my game, to my training camp. Twice a week I have a session, just me visualising the work that I've done, visualising the work that I'm going to do, and I'll actually be doing some of that tomorrow morning as well. I have visualised it. You know, I know my super strengths. I know what I'm good at. I know that I need to carry that out. I need to be out there. I need to be jabbing. I need to put combinations together and just be careful in my defence, keep good footwork. But I just see it as a Fraser Clark win, and I've got a feeling, you know, the way that I've looked in the gym, the way I feel, if I carry this into the ring, I'm going to look good doing it. He's a very tough man, but I'm counting this as a breakdown job. I've took inspiration. I watched Ajit Kabayal, the way he broke down Zhang, things like that. That's what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I visualise a great victory myself. A stoppage is what I'm wanting. A stoppage is actually what I need. It will just take me to the next level in confidence. So I'm praying for that. I'm going to work hard towards that.
Fraser, who wins the main event? Fraser, Whittaker, or Cameron?
Oh, yeah, another fantastic fight. I've got Ben Whittaker winning it on points in a very tough fight. You know, I don't think it's one-sided at all. I think with the new corner team he's got, the person in his corner, I think Andy Lee will have a huge effect on Ben and will definitely help guide him round by round to a points victory.
Well, Fraser, we wish you luck. We thank you very much indeed for your time. Good luck tomorrow night on the comeback trail.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Yeah, great stuff. Great to have Fraser Clark with us here on Fight Night. Now, up next, I visualise that we'll continue our conversation with Spencer Oliver as the countdown continues to Whittaker against Cameron, the rematch. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. And welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, and Duke McKenzie alongside me. And still with us live from Birmingham is Spencer Oliver. Of course, Spencer giving us the lowdown on Whittaker against Cameron 2. Everyone talking about it Easter Sunday, live with us here on talkSPORT. Spencer's had his ear to the ground all week. And Spencer, what have you picked up from being around the fighters and around the weigh-in? Anything? Little nuggets for us?
Yeah. Absolutely. Listen, it's been great being around the fighters for the last few days. They're staying in this hotel, actually. Ben Whittaker, you know, there was drama surrounding the weigh-in today, actually. The weigh-in, which is surprising, Duke will relate to this. The weigh-in was put at 10 a.m. this morning. Now, a normal weigh-in would be around 1, 2 p.m. normally, but 10 a.m. the weigh-in was. Was that for Ben Whittaker? Was that to do him a favour? Well, he turned up 40 minutes late for the weigh-in, and the scales were flickering. He weighed 10 stone 7, and they were just flickering. Lee, and by the way, the manager of Liam Cameron has been absolutely fantastic all week. He's been trying to get into the team. He was trying to say that the scales weren't right, they weren't there. Ben Whittaker looked like he'd been working some weight off to get to these scales. And the question I'm saying now is Ben Whittaker struggling at the weight for him to be weighing in at 10 a.m., coming in as tight as he did? He looked like he was sweating, so I think that he had to get a couple of pounds off. Rumours were he had to lose 2 or 3 pounds this morning. So is that going to be a factor? Because one thing I can guarantee, Liam Cameron is in a very good headspace. He said he thought he was going in with a monster last time, and he said he soon realised in that fight that Whittaker didn't hit the way he expected him to, and actually he was easier to hit than what he expected. He said, and as that fight was going on, he felt like the momentum was clearly turning in his favour, and he felt like he was going to go on and win that fight. So he's going in with a new added confidence into this one as well. So he's been great all week, Liam Cameron, very relaxed and very, very confident. But it's interesting to see this whole Ben Whittaker thing and see what happens if we get into the second half of the contest, which I truly expect we will.
Yeah, that is going to be fascinating. You know what, Duke? Liam Cameron was saying to Whittaker, wasn't he, when they were talking in that head-to-head, I think you're tight at the weight. Yeah. I think we all know you're tight at the weight. He was goading him, and from what Spencer said, there might be something in that.
There could be something in that. Spencer, have they had an open workout at all? Have you seen anybody doing any shadow boxing?
They did, no. I mean, they both look fantastic on the scales, if I'm totally honest. And I think now Ben Whittaker knows what he's going into. Maybe he underestimated Liam Cameron. You know, got out there in Saudi back in October, and he went in there and thought he had to just turn up to win. That's what fighters do, you know, early in their careers. Fighters of his ability, anyway. He's an Olympic silver medalist, and I think he thought he was leagues above. He soon recognised, actually, this is a different game. You know, and you have to have a bit of dog in you, and you've got to turn it around when the chips are down. And I think his mindset, Duke, going into this one will be totally different, and that's why I think it, you know, that's why I lean towards him to win this fight. I think the team up with Andy Lee as well is bringing a great addition to his team. Andy Lee is a no-nonsense type of guy, you know, and he's been there, seen it, done it, trained at the Kronk, you know, the famous Kronk gym, and he knows his stuff, Andy Lee. So he's a great addition. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one when the first bell goes to see how both guys have handled it since that last contest.
It'll also be interesting to see just how Ben Whittaker starts the fight, because obviously he won't want a showboat, will he? He want to come out and be all business and just go to work. He's got to win this fight and look impressive in this fight, right?
Absolutely. Totally agree with you, Duke. And I tell you what, the showboating that he's been getting away with early on in his career, he couldn't get away without in Saudi. You saw he had a different approach, and I think that he tried to make a statement out there and soon recognised that Liam Cameron weren't going anywhere, and this kid actually is strong and he's tough. It's in his DNA. He likes that. He's one of those rare fighters that's got that grit, and he likes it tough, and he likes to take fighters in that second half of the contest. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles this one. Will we get the flashy Ben Whittaker, or will he get, you know, get down to business and try and make that statement? But, you know, we really don't know the way that this is going to go. And I'll tell you what, Duke, and I think you'll agree with me on this one, actually, when both guys went out that ring in the 5th round, Whittaker was clearly starting to feel the pace, and the momentum was clearly going with Liam Cameron at that stage. They both went out the ring, Cameron got back in the ring, Whittaker didn't. Was he injured, or was he just thinking this could be the way out? Now, only he knows that, Duke, and you know that as well. So only he knows if he's got to deal with those demons, and that could be the deciding factor in this contest.
Yeah, I personally feel, I don't think he swallowed Spence. I'm not suggesting you said that, but I think he was winded quite badly, and he probably thought to himself, you know what, in a split second, he probably thought, you know what, I'll sit this one out, because he realised he was in a fight. I don't expect anything less than a stoppage win for him tomorrow will suffice the public and also himself. He's going to need to go out there and do a number on Cameron. And as you said, Cameron's a dog, and he's going to be on him from the first to the last.
Yeah. Duke, how do you think he approaches this one mentally? You know, like psychologically going into this one after that first one? Because I think he may have taken Cameron lightly in that one. But how does he approach it? You give us the fighter's mindset on how he goes into this.
Well, surely he's got to say to himself, you know, I wasn't on form on the night. You know, we had the accident. I went over the top of the rope. It's not in my makeup to you know, quit in a fight or look bad in a fight, so now I've got to go out there and put the right that was wrong. Do you see what I mean? He can't afford to be, you know, showboating. He can't start, you know, dancing around. He can't get on the back foot. He's not going to win this fight off the back foot. He's got to be seen to be doing the business, so he's going to have to go out there and really turn it on. But, you know, class is permanent and form is temporary. You know that, Spence, as well as anyone. I would expect his overall class to shut out Cameron early, shut him out early, make sure he can miss the shots and pick him up with the shorter shots on the inside, you know, a bit of infighting to show Cameron that he's got that grit about him. Well, I think he has that.
Yeah. Yeah, do you know what, Duke? I'm sort of with you on it, mate. I've been swinging one way then the other, and I've been looking into these two, been around them all week as well. And for me, I think he's going to grind out a tough fight. And I think what we find out about Ben Whittaker in this fight that we didn't know before, that actually he has got that bit of dog in him.
Spence, just one thing to talk about Liam Cameron. I don't think we're giving him enough credit, not with yourself, but in the show so far. The story is just extraordinary. It is a boxing story, isn't it? The comeback of Liam Cameron as a human being, someone who was drinking, he says, a bottle of gin a day. He was going nowhere. He put the weight on, then he went back to the gym. Terrible tragedy in his personal life as well. And then he went back to the Steel City. They said, come on, give it another go. And he went day by day and rebuilt himself. He says now that he's happier than he's ever been. It's an extraordinary story of redemption. And that's why, Spencer, there's no pressure on him really tomorrow night, is there?
Dave, and that's why he's become a fan favourite. The story is absolutely insane. You know, we all know the troubles that he had, and he lost his licence for 4 years because of a failed drugs test, not performance enhancing, recreational drugs. He made a mistake. He served the ban for that, but he struggled mentally with it. You know, he went up to 20 stone, guys. They're boxing at 12 stone 7 there. He went up to 20 stone, and he had tragedy in his life as well. How does a man mentally get over that? Well, I'll tell you what, he has got over it, but that's got to make him so mentally strong, and that plays a part in this fight as well. He's tasted a little bit of the high life now. You know, people have recognised him. Listen to this for a story, right? You're going to absolutely love this one. So I'm speaking to him in an interview. He said, you know what, Spence, people are actually starting to recognise me now. I went into a shop, and guess what happened? I went in there, so when I thought to myself, oh, Calvin Klein's. I think I'll treat myself to them. I don't ever wear Calvin Klein pants. I thought I'd treat myself to them. And I went in there. They were 42 quid. And the geezer looked at me and went, oh, I know you. You're Liam Cameron. And he gave them to me for a score. 20 quid, he goes. And it made me feel really good. And I've tasted it. And I want a little bit more of it. And I was like, fair play to you, mate. I didn't ask him what pants he normally buys. But there you go. He's a Calvin Klein man now.
Call yourself a journalist. Come on, we need the information, Spence. We need the pants that he normally wears. But what a great story.
I know. But
just fantastic. He said, of course, that the ban and his troubles with drink and everything, to use his words, he said it set me back 20 steps and brought me forward 50. And the thing that's been so inspirational the last few weeks and months to hear is the amount of people who've been struggling themselves, who've been in touch with him and say they've been inspired by his journey because in a way of the ordinariness of it. He explains it so clearly, what was going on and how he bounced back, how he fought, and that's why everyone's cheering him on tomorrow night. And you know what? Even if Whittaker schools him, I don't think he will, but even if he does and he wins, Liam Cameron has inspired so many people these last few months. Only boxing, Spencer, gives us stories like this. I know it's become a cliche to say it, but it's true.
Absolutely, Dave. And do you know what? It's an inspirational story, and you know, he's affected a lot of people with it, and people love that, and that's why he has become a fan favourite. The honesty from the kid. Do you know what I mean? He's just an honest guy. He's a really lovely human being. Very, very infectious. When you speak to him, you get up close and personal with him. He's just an honest guy that lays it on the table. That's the characters that you get in this sport of boxing. You know, you look at Ben Whittaker and the flamboyancy that he is, and the way that he dresses, and the showman, and he has to deliver. He puts that added pressure on himself, but I think that brings the best out on him. But this kid has just had a taste of the high life, and with what he's been through, that makes him a dangerous, dangerous opponent. I can't wait for tomorrow night.
Spencer, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. It was great to talk to you again. It's been a while. It was Paris last time we spoke, so it's fantastic to talk to you again. What a joy. Really good to see you, Spence.
Yeah, lovely speaking to you, Dave, and you as well, Duke. Smashing it as always, mate. Well done.
Cheers, Spence.
Doing our best. Spence smashing it. He'll be smashing it tomorrow night. The fight, of course, is live with us here on talkSPORT. Now, coming up, we're going to be talking about a major shake-up in the heavyweight division. Alexander Usyk looks set to rematch Daniel Dubois, this time at Wembley Stadium for the undisputed heavyweight crown. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farron, the former three-weight world champion Duke McKenzie alongside me. We'll return shortly to Whittaker against Cameron. We're going to, of course, be talking about Ben against Eubank with a very special guest. Don't forget live commentary from Birmingham tomorrow night on Whittaker against Cameron too. But, Duke, we need to turn our attention to the heavyweight division. Now, it's not done. It's not done, Usyk Dubois 2. We're not making an announcement here, let's be clear about it. But I think it feels like it's far enough along that we can start talking about it. They're talking July the 12th. As I said, nothing confirmed. We don't know anything. We're not trying to give anything away. But I think it's fair enough to start talking about it. What do you make of that as a prospect? Is the first thing to say, goodness me, Joseph Parker's unlucky, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we put Parker to one side, of course he's unlucky. But he's unlucky and he's not unlucky because he will undoubtedly fight the winner. I don't think there can be any argument of that. But this fight between Usyk and Dubois is the best of the best. We've got the two best heavyweights on the planet going head-to-head again. Now, you know, I'm a big fan of Daniel Dubois. I'm probably a bigger fan of Dubois than I'm of Usyk. I like Usyk also, but I like Dubois and I like everything he stands for, everything he represents and the way that he carries himself. Tip Dubois to beat AJ, and at a point where the whole nation or a lot of people were picking AJ to win, I looked at Dubois and I thought to myself, you know what? He's a good all-rounder. He's got some good moves. He hits hard, jabs well, good stamina. You know, so there was a lot of tick boxes, and then I did the tick box on AJ, and Dubois came out on top for me. If he was fighting anybody else other than Alexander Usyk, I'd pick him to win, but he's not going to beat Usyk. I don't think so. You know, some people are saying in the boxing fraternity that Usyk's got a lot of miles on his clock now. He's looking tired. He's looking jaded. No, he's not. Not in my opinion. You know, the guy's like his engine's like a Rolls Royce engine. He purrs along comfortably. He goes up through the gears comfortably. You don't see him getting cut. You don't see him getting knocked down unless it's a low blow. You know, he just does most things effortlessly, and he wins rounds. You know, he might not start off great, but he always wins the end of the round. If you know what you're looking at, and you look at Alexander Usyk, for a heavyweight, he's a complete fighting machine. He can box, he can fight. He can box on the front foot, he can box on the back foot, counter punches well, attacks well, works you up and down. You know, he's very, very systematic in what he does. And you know, like I say, if Dubois was fighting anybody else, I'd back him 100%. But I don't think there's a heavyweight on the planet who can beat Usyk right now.
Yeah, this isn't going to be much of an argument because I agree with everything you've said, but I am going to be devil's advocate in this conversation. People will say that Dubois has had a chance to improve, that he has improved, that he's produced impressive wins, that he bounced back from what was a humiliation by Usyk. He was stopped with a jab in round 9. He was broken down by Usyk in Wroclaw. Myself and Barry Jones were lucky enough to be sitting right behind the low blow. That wasn't there was a low blow, of course, but you know, Dubois then has bounced back. He's beaten Jarrell Miller, he's beaten Hrgovic, and of course, then he steamrolled AJ that nobody apart from you, or not many apart from you, saw coming. So has Dubois improved enough to give himself a chance, or more of a chance in this fight? Can he get to Usyk potentially? Yeah, listen, he's going to have his moments in the fight. I'm sure of that, because you can't get into a 12-round fight with Daniel Dubois now. This much improved Daniel Dubois. You can't get into a fight with him and not get hit and not get hurt. Usyk will be in a fight, and he may have to answer questions that he's never had to answer before. He may even have to get up off the floor, but he has the character and the ability to do that. Dubois can win, of course he can, because he's heavy-handed, and as we've already stated, he's a much improved fighter. The question remains is, has he improved enough at this level? This is what we call the elite level. This is the creme de la creme of heavyweight boxing. He's not fighting an old jaded tired champion that's got one or two chinks in his armour, and those one or two chinks are defeats, which Usyk doesn't have. There aren't any visible chinks in Alexander Usyk's armour. Like I say, he hasn't been beaten. We don't know how good this guy is. I think he retires undefeated. I just can't see Dubois beating him. I hope I'm wrong. I want Dubois to win. I would love to see Daniel Dubois beat Alexander Usyk. I don't think there'd be anybody more happier for him other than him and his coach and the rest of his team. But I just can't really see that happening. Usyk's already won 2 rematches at heavyweight, of course, against Anthony Joshua, against Tyson Fury. There's an argument to say that The second fights, in both cases, were closer than the first. Fury, of course, the decision was wider in the second, but I think many people felt Fury got closer to him in that second fight. Is there any significance in that?
No, I didn't see that. I thought the second fights were easier for Usyk. I just thought, the mark of a good champion, when you're in a fight and you get a return in the same fight against the same opponent, is that you make the necessary adjustments. The second fight for Usyk against Fury was so comfortable for him, he could have gone up another 2-3 levels. If it had been a 15-round fight, he would have stopped Fury, no doubt. Not in my book. It's a 12-round fight, and for those 12 rounds, Daniel Dubois will be in with a shout, and Daniel Dubois will have his moments. I wouldn't be surprised if he decked Usyk and went in for the finish and then walked on to one. I really wouldn't. This fight will be better than their first fight, make no mistake, because Daniel Dubois is a better fighter now. But he will bring out the best in Alexander Usyk.
Maris Bradis is arguably the fighter who's got closest to Usyk, albeit at cruiser, and he did that with that Bradis sort of action style, roughing him up and so on. Is that the way to get to Usyk, or is he so much better now than he was then that's irrelevant?
I think he's much better now than he was then, because he's much more mature now and has much more experience, in his game. Do you see what I mean? Alexander Usyk can rely on so much. If he can't beat you with the jab, then he'll throw little combinations. If he can't do that, he can beat you off the back foot, off the front foot, any which way, sideways, front ways, backwards or forwards. He's for a heavyweight, you've got to try and understand that what Alexander does for a heavyweight, other heavyweights can't do. Do you see what I mean? Most heavyweights are one-dimensional. Daniel Dubois is very much a one-dimensional fighter, in as much as he's a pressure fighter. He goes forward. Daniel Dubois, we haven't seen Daniel Dubois pushed back and having to really tough it out off the back foot. But he may have to do that in this fight, and we're going to have to find out whether he can do that in this fight. But all the questions will be answered when they fight, because Usyk's going to have to bring his A game and be on his game, because Dubois will almost certainly be on his. Dubois hasn't had a taste. This is the first taste of, being worldly renowned as the world pound-for-pound #1 heavyweight on the planet. So there's more than just the world title on the line. He wants that recognition. The only way he's going to get that recognition if he beats Usyk. And that's what we're going to find out when and if they fight.
Yeah, when and if they fight. What an occasion it will be, though.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
It's going to be a chance in this country to go and see one of the greats ever as well. Let's be honest.
It's not just a fight; it's an occasion. And like I said before, if I'm not working on it, then I'll pay me your money and I'll go and watch it.
I'll come with you. Let's go and do that. If we're not working on it, we'll go and watch it. One of the great joys, by the way, if you ever get the chance to watch Usyk with a fighter, and we think we see the nuances about him, they see all these extra ones, and it's so fascinating to see fighters just loving what he's doing. We were going to talk about Tyson Fury as well. Is he really, as Bob Arum said, going to call it a day? But we got so wrapped up in Usyk against Dubois, and we're going to get wrapped up in a fascinating fight, of course, that's coming up next week. Can't wait for that, talking about Ben against Eubank. It's going to be absolutely brilliant on Fight Night on talkSPORT. A huge hour of build-up to Ben versus Eubank. Joining us to talk through it all will be the Celtic warrior himself, Steve Collins. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Duke will be here as well. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT.
Hamilton, now at Ferrari, dares to dream of a record 8th F1 world title. The Tifosi will be hoping the Brits can bring glory back to Italy. To many, Ferrari and Formula One are inseparable. They're the only team in the sport today to have competed in the first World Championship in 1950, are the most successful team in history, and have built some absolutely gorgeous cars. Their first driver's title was won in 1952 by Alberto Ascari. Considered one of F1's most dominant and best-loved champions, he drove the iconic Ferrari 500 and defended his title the year after. It was Juan Manuel Fangio in his Ferrari 250 who secured the team's next driver's title in 1956. Remember, he was world champion 5 times with 4 different teams. Mike Hawthorne, Phil Hill and John Surtees also won titles for Ferrari in the 50s and 60s, and the cars back then were beautiful, and they even sounded great, didn't they? Anyway, Ferrari went 11 years without winning a title until Niki Lauda won in 1975 in the iconic 312T. Throughout much of the 80s and 90s, though, Ferrari looked like they'd never go all the way again. Le Professeur Alain Prost came pretty close in 1990, but lost out to his bitter rival and former teammate at McLaren, Ayrton Senna. It was only when John Todt recruited a swathe of staff from outside of Italy, including Michael Schumacher, that the glory days returned 21 years after their last driver's title. The turn of the century saw the prancing horse sprint to an unprecedented 5 consecutive championship doubles. And after Schumacher left, Kimi Raikkonen reclaimed the driver's title immediately. But despite employing 1,500 people, the Iceman remains the last Ferrari world champion. So, 16 constructors' titles, 7 more than McLaren, and 15 drivers' titles, 4 more than, again, McLaren. Ferrari are truly Formula One's top team. Forza Ferrari.
Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, and Duke McKenzie. We have a huge hour ahead as we look ahead to one of the most talked about fights in recent memory, Conor Benn against Chris Eubank Jr. And joining us live in the studio right through until 11, the Celtic Warrior himself, Steve Collins, delighted to have him here. This is a Fight Night special on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing, and the place to watch Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn next Saturday. You can buy it now at DAZN.com/boxing.
We are proud to present the main attraction of the evening, a middleweight contest at 11 stone 6 pounds over 12 rounds, each of 3 minutes duration, for the WBO Middleweight Championship of the World.
It was a fight in an era, a generation where it was heavily spoken about. It was one of the biggest fights of all time.
This is going to be like the first fight between my father and Nigel Benn. It's going to be special.
The eyes watch Reg. This will be the finish of the Melbourne. It's all over in the 9th round.
If anyone else touches me.
What if I was to slap you right now? What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, go on, go ahead.
Yeah, talk about my dad.
I do detest Chris Eubanks, you know, more than anybody else.
I come up the hard way. I didn't think for myself, boy. You had your time. Let's have some parliamentary procedure here, all right?
What they've done is they've sat there at night and thought, I'm going to hit him round the face with an egg.
These guys don't know who's won. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, listen, I've got to tell you, I don't know. I've never seen such a tight fight. If I'm going to go for anything, I'm going to go for the draw.
He was good, but
He hurt me bad, man.
You're just upset.
Me and you
Your
are
dad
fighting.
Can't stand you. And
I'm
my
not
dad
upset.
has my back. You are. That's all that
I'm not
was.
upset.
Jimmy Tibbs, you're the trainer, of course. Did you think Nigel actually won? He's disgusted with the verdict. You think
we just actually nicked
No way, come on, don't play that. No. He didn't win this fight. There's no way.
The names of the fathers, it goes back 4 decades.
Two legends who went into a ring and inspired a nation.
I'm taking care of the family business. You know, the last fight was a draw, and you know, it's about time I set the score straight.
Now, finally, it's time for the sons to get it on.
The procedure will be parliamentary.
Hearing those old clips from those old fights in the early 90s, it really takes you back. They were special, special times. We're going to talk about them a little bit later, but we have to focus on now. Sorry, Steve?
So the music to the Raging Bull.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, yeah, definitely.
A bit of Jake LaMotta. It got us going, didn't it? Got a bit of De Niro, a bit of Jake LaMotta. Great stuff. And, of course, joined by a man who beat them both twice. And we'll talk about that in a few moments' time. But first, we're going to focus on the sons, on Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. Steve, first of all, what have you made of the build-up in general? It's been a long time coming. 2 years, 6 months and 18 days after it was initially meant to happen.
The build-up's been a great build-up. We've been talking about it for 2 years. You know, is it going to happen? It's not going to happen. The politics, the drama, the history, the whole thing. And it's just made us into a big, big occasion.
Yeah, and one thing, Duke, that people have talked about is the sort of legitimacy of the fight. Is it a fight that matters other than the family rivalry? How do you see that?
It is a fight that matters because obviously they're fighting for pride amongst anything else. You know, Eubank Ben is synonymous, obviously, because of their dads, and obviously this man had a part to play in that whole shake-up. So I mean, you know, Eubank Ben, it's brought a whole new audience to the sport of boxing, a whole new young audience to the sport of boxing. You know, you don't get a lot of young guys now talking about Ben Eubank seniors. They're talking about Ben Eubank juniors, and all the kids in my gym are absolutely sold on this. It's box office, it's entertainment, but it's entertainment of the highest order because these two are proper boxers.
Yeah, they are proper boxers who've campaigned at different weights, Steve, and we'll talk more specifically about what they need to do. But again, what are your initial thoughts on that? We've got Conor Benn, who's campaigned at welterweight, against Eubank Jr., who's campaigned at super middle, recently at middle, and this is made at 160. We'll talk about the rehydration clause in a moment, but what do you make of that? Is that scalable for Conor?
Actually, I think the advantage goes to Conor because I would rather put on 10 pounds than lose 10 pounds because I'm 10 pounds stronger and not 10 pounds weaker. You know, at a heavier weight, we're stronger. So I think, you know, the advantage probably is with Conor gaining weight because he doesn't have to dehydrate and lose strength coming down, whereas Eubank Jr. will lose strength coming down, and it's hard for him to come down and maintain the strength and stamina dropping weight. The clause, why have they put a clause in? I mean, this is an advantage to Conor Benn to put a clause in, but I don't think it's a healthy thing to do. I think if Eubank's a bigger man, he's a bigger man, let him be strong. You know what damages fighters going into the ring back in the day, that's the whole reason why they made the weigh-ins the day before, was dehydration. Because dehydration is when a guy can get hurt. You know, if Chris Eubank loses 15 pounds of fluids or 10 pounds of fluids to make the weight, you know, he won't rehydrate back to his full natural strength. And that to me is not. They should just waive that rehydration rule and just let him get in at whatever weight they want to get in. I don't think it's I don't know why they've done it. If it's an advantage, it would be an advantage probably to Conor Benn, but it could be a bit of a risk to Eubank as well. I'm not guessing, I believe that. It's not a guess, it's what I believe.
Let's just be clear about the rehydration clause to explain to people who don't know. They have to be 160, that's what it's made at on the Friday, and then 10 a.m. on the day of the fight. They can't be more than 10 pounds heavier than that. It is an advantage, Duke, as Steve was saying, to Conor Benn. That's the general feeling. But Eubank will still be very big on fight night.
Well, he's naturally the bigger man, but what we have is a genuine middleweight stroke super middleweight against the career's best welterweight. It's only really the good and the great that can jump up through the weight divisions and still maintain your speed and your power. The question will have to be asked is, will Ben's power be enough to keep Eubank off him? These two are going to be like two stags going at it on fight night, and you know, it makes for a good fight. But I mean, we have to look at this from a health and safety perspective also, because Eubank is going to be dragging, as Steve's already said, he's coming down in weight, which isn't the best preparation in any fight. The 10 pound rehydration clause means he can only put on 10 pounds overnight, which he will do, and go up in weight again.
So I can ask a question there. It's at 10 a.m. the morning of the fight. They're going to check his weight.
Yeah.
Oh, then it's not an issue.
It's not an issue, is it?
No, because we used to weigh in at 10 a.m. the day of a fight. I fought for titles where I had to weigh in that morning.
Yeah.
At middleweight.
Yeah.
Now, I fought amateur at light heavy and heavyweight, and I boiled down to middleweight as a professional, and I have weighed in the morning of the fight, and I have rehydrated again. So I didn't know it was at 10 a.m. So no, I'm less concerned now. I think he should be okay then. I don't think it will be a factor now, in my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but from my own experience.
Yeah, you boxed at that weight. You know what it is to fight in world title fight, Steve.
So
and you know what it is
if he's up to 100 and just under 170 pounds in the morning, and he's got another 12 hours before he fights, he'd be okay. I don't think that should be an issue.
I think they're weighing at 160.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's the 10 pounds, so it'd be 170.
Yeah, and then
by the time he gets on fight night.
And 175, he's not bigger than that. I think 175.
Yeah, I don't think he can go above that though. The 170.
Yeah, but
is that right?
You just said to me the clause
in the morning,
10 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. But he can go bigger than that in the evening, of course. So
He can go and have a gallon of water at 10:30, can't he?
Right.
So if he comes in at 175, I think that's probably he doesn't want to be any heavier. Then he becomes sluggish. Yeah. So I don't know. Now you've told me that. I don't think it's an issue.
Well, we'll see. We'll see as that develops. I wanted to ask you as well about the fathers, both of whom you know very well, of course, Steve. One we think will be there, and one potentially won't be there. What difference do you think that will make?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for Chris Eubank Sr. to show himself, which he does like to do. If he did show up, it will be a drama added to the drama. I think he should show up. Maybe he won't be in the corner. I believe his son wants him there. I think he indicated he wanted him there. I think he should show up because we're all here. We are discussing is his dad going to be there? He's not going to be there. So he's part of the drama, which makes him happy too. So he probably will show. It'd be crazy not to.
We'll hear the tapping of a cane, and we'll hear that familiar voice at some point.
He may even add it to Simply the Best. We don't know.
You never know. You never know. Absolutely. Listen, we've got so much to talk about. We're going to focus on Conor Benn and then on Eubank Jr. as we continue to build towards a fight with Steve Collins. Great to have him with us. Rather, we turn the focus to the destroyer, Conor Benn. What does he need to do to get that win on April the 26th? This is Fight Night here on talkSPORT. history of boxing, Sugar Ray Robinson, Emil Griffith, Thomas Hearns, all able to jump from 147 to 160 at a level, of course. But that's what we're talking about with Conor Benn. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farrar, with Duke McKenzie, and in the studio with us through until 11 is the Celtic Warrior himself, Steve Collins. We're breaking down Benn against Eubank Jr., and Conor Benn returns to action after over a year out, last seeing beating Peter Dobson by unanimous decision. Steve, you first of all, what does Conor need to do in your view to come out on top?
Well, Conor's, has got power. He needs to rough up Eubank, do what his dad done in the day, and land big shots. He's not going to outbox him. He's not going to, outsmart him. He's just going to have to land big shots. That's his route to success in this fight. It's not going to be easy, but that's how I see Conor winning, is landing big shots and hurting and stopping Eubank. Eubank is clever. He's been at a good level. He's tough. So it's a hard show. If Conor lands the big shots, he could do it. If he doesn't, Eubank then will take control.
And the tantalising question that we never know the answer to do in these situations is, does he carry the power up 2 weight classes? You say, can he land the shots? But what happens if he does land? He will land, we think. Eubank Jr., we think, vulnerable to left hooks often. If he lands a big left hook early and doesn't hurt him, psychologically difficult for him?
He will carry the power. It's not like he's fighting a man, 3 stone heavy. He's fighting a guy, 10, maybe 12 pounds heavier. And they're not that big. I mean, there's a weight. They're not major difference in size. So he will have power and he will hurt. A good welterweight will knock a good middleweight, 7 days a week if he lands right. So I don't think that the power will be there. And if he lands, he'll hurt. If Eubank, like his dad, has the chin and the durability, he can come back. If he doesn't, he could be in trouble.
Duke, is that first fight, sorry to interrupt you, is that first fight against Liam Smith in many ways the template, do you think, for Conor Benn to beat Eubank Jr.? Does he have to approach it in a similar way to that?
Sure. I mean, listen, Benn has to fight a career's best performance. He's going to be the fight of his life. He is naturally the smaller guy. I don't know that jumping up 2 weights divisions is going to make him necessarily stronger, because Eubank is massive for the weight. So that could nullify Benn's power. I don't know if he is, I don't know if he is a massive puncher where he can take you out with one shot. It's the cumulative effect. The question has to be asked is, has Eubank's punch resistance eroded? He got stopped by Smith, shockingly, quite alarmingly. But the question has to be asked, how well does he make the weight, Eubank? And can Benn maintain the work rate over the duration of the fight? Because he hasn't looked great in his last couple of fights, Benn. So he's going to have to fight a career's best performance. I'm sure you'd agree with that, Steve.
Well, yeah, definitely.
And also, will he carry that kind of power? Can he carry the power? Because the smaller guy will have to work harder, won't he?
At the beginning of this interview, I've changed a bit because I now understand the weight situation will not affect Eubank as much as I thought it would have. Mm-hmm. So he may not have as much success with his power, because he'd be fighting, in my opinion, a stronger Eubank than I believe he's going to fight with the weight allowance. Well, Eubank, we saw what happened in the Liam Smith fight, and Conor knows. Conor's up against one of the best fighters he's ever fought in his life, and he, sometimes fighters perform against competition. The better the competition, the better they perform. So Conor is going to, he's been doing a lot of talk and making a lot of predictions and saying a lot, and he's going to have to back it. So he must be confident that he's ready. He must have trained and prepared really hard for this fight. Do you know what? This is what this is what I like about this match. Either guy can win. Mm-hmm. It's not a typical, opponent fighting the champion, and unless something crazy happens, he's going to win. These are 2 young men who are the kids of us now, we're getting older. Mm-hmm. These are two young fighters, who are, I think they're both, probably at the best. They want to get it on, and it's a great match. Everything about the drama, physically and boxing wise, I think either guy has potential to beat the other. That's what I'm looking forward to the fight for that reason.
And what about inactivity in terms of Conor Benn, Duke? We know why. I mentioned the timescale, 2 years, 6 months and 18 days. It was because of an adverse analytical finding, and he's now been cleared to fight, but he's boxed twice since April of 2022. You've already pointed out wasn't mega impressive in either of those fights. Now we can say shaking off rust and so on, and we can give him that, can't we? But is that a factor, do you think?
I think it will be, because not only has he got to shake off the ring rust, he's also fighting the naturally bigger man. And Steve will know, when you fight a naturally bigger guy, you've got to try twice as hard to land your best shots. So if Conor Benn's going in there with the attitude, well, I'm just going to knock this guy out, and he puts everything into every shot, as he has to take out the naturally bigger guy, what if Eubank rides the early storm? Because he's that smart. He's not a silly boy, Eubank. He's been around the block, and I think this might come down to levels. Eubanks has boxed at a higher level. He's boxed a better calibre of boxer than Ben. So Ben hasn't boxed anybody like Eubank before. So, there are going to be twists and turns, I'm sure, but I would expect Eubank to come out on top.
Yeah, when you read the programme, that's what it looks like, but this is boxing, and a puncher has always got a chance. But has he got the power? I would have said he's dangerous, but now with the weight thing, he might not have as much danger in his punches. Maybe Eubank can absorb them better, but then we saw what happened with Smith. Do you know what? I really don't know. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing him tonight. I can't pick a winner, because if I do, I can actually argue, for both of them. So I'm looking forward to a good match, a good fight, and I'm looking forward to these two guys getting it on, because there's no love lost at all, and they both, they're not just out there to win. They've got this family pride that are carrying in. They have a lot on their shoulders. There's a lot of pressure on them. Both of them have a lot of pressure. They've put a lot of pressure on themselves to succeed, and neither of them wants to back down, and neither of them wants to lose. So they're going to dig down to a level I don't think they've ever reached or had to dig down to before in any other opponent they met. This is personal, and there's a lot going on here, as outside as well as inside the ring.
When you love boxing, isn't it great when a fight crosses over like this and everyone wants your opinion? Everyone's got an opinion about who's going to win, different opinions flying left, right and centre. It's one of those special weeks, I think, in the build-up to Ben against Eubank Jr. Steve, I wonder about mindset. They always said of Nigel Benn that when he fought angry, he lost. They always said that, didn't they, against Watson, the first fight against Eubank. I know he said, okay, let's say extra
Nigel Benn
angry.
was dangerous when he was angry. Sometimes the best way probably to fight Nigel Benn was not to get him angry, try and steal it and get through the rounds and not upset him. When you make him angry, when Nigel Benn was hurt, that's when he was dangerous. He would throw shots from unorthodox positions. He'd bring his glove from the floor at an angle you wouldn't expect and land and not take people out. When he was angry, he was dangerous. Maybe his son, maybe Conor, that works for him, because he wants to be angry. He's making himself angry, and he wants to unleash his anger on Eubank. He wants to be the angry fighter in the ring and let them go, because that's what his dad was successful when he was in trouble, and when he was dangerous when he was losing. That's when he was angry. He should just let it go without thinking.
So that's the route to victory. Then is that channeling that anger, swarm of bees. They used to say that about Hagler, didn't they?
Control. It has to be controlled anger.
Well, that was my point. My point. Yeah. So it's got to be sensible anger, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's a topic. It's. I never spoke about this in the fight before. Controlling anger and so on in the manner we're talking about now. So it's interesting. But he is angry. He's a very angry man. But then other times he talks and he's not. He's very calm and he's quite articulate. But here, when he sees Eubank Jr., he just gets really angry. So I've no doubt when the bell rings, he's going to be an angry guy. He's going to come out like the Tasmanian devil and hopefully land a big shot. I think that's his game plan.
I personally feel that plays into Eubank's hands. Because if Conor Benn's going in there angry, and and I know, when you're angry, you're going to take chances.
Yeah.
And if you take chances, you're going to get hurt.
You risk, you're right.
Yeah.
But Eubank also knows that he has been hit. And what happens when he gets hit hard, he doesn't know whether he can take it or not. So he's going to have this angry guy coming at him, and he's going to, he's got questions in his mind. If this guy lands, what's going to happen to me?
Who would you rather fight? A smaller guy coming up in weight, or a bigger guy boiling down? Because you've boxed at this weight.
A bigger guy boiling down.
A bigger guy boiling down.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's not boiling down now. He's boiling down, but he's got this gap and this opportunity to put the weight on, which we didn't have in our day.
No.
When you fought at your lighter weights, how hard it was to make the weight. We had a conversation. I remember I fought in Atlantic City. I weighed in on a Sunday morning and I fought in the afternoon. I had no time to rehydrate, but we just did it. That's how it was done. You fought at lighter weights and you moved up, and I reckon you were probably stronger and better at the heavier weights than you were at the lighter weights.
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
I don't. It's a debate. It's what makes it interesting, isn't it?
It's worth remembering as well about the 160 thing that even though Eubank Jr. has fought as a super middle at 168, his last significant fight at that weight was James DeGale. I mean, he's boxed at middle largely since then, including against Liam Smith, of course. And let's remember, he did overturn, albeit Liam Smith wasn't right for the rematch, but he did overturn that result as well. So there's not necessarily he is taking off that much weight. He's used to fighting at middle. He's used to fighting at 160, and that might just play into his hands, I suppose, mightn't it? But we'll talk more about Eubank in a few moments.
He's had a long time to prepare to make this weight, and he's had a good incentive too. They're getting well paid for it. If someone said to you, I'm going to pay you millions if you drop 20 pounds over the next 6 months or next year, or whatever, you will do it, and you'll do it properly because the reward is there. So he's got good incentive, and he's had time to do it.
It's a remarkable statistic. I have it written down. The first time that their fathers fought, Nigel Benn got 400,000, Chris Eubank 850,000. This is what was reported. Eubank Jr. is getting 10 million for this, and Conor Benn 8 million. Duke, how times have changed. You've just taken the words out of my mouth.
Times have changed. Times have changed. Isn't it? If me and Steve were fighting today, it would be gazillionaires. That's a fact of life. But you can't look back. You can only look ahead.
The thing is, the world is a bigger place now. When we fought, we had, British media, we had some European media. If we're lucky, we might have got the American media. Since the Berlin Wall's broken down, look how vast the world is. We've got people following boxing from countries that we never heard of, that didn't exist. The world is a bigger place. There's 100 more networks viewing fights more than there was when we boxed. So they're getting a fair share. God knows what the promoters are getting out of it. But, happy days. Let them make the money because they're earning it. I hope they hold on to it, and I hope they're sensible with it because, earning money's hard. Keeping it is even harder.
Well, that's the oldest story in boxing, isn't it? The keeping hold of money, and that long story, and it can be a sad one as well. Now, we've talked about Conor Benn. We're going to focus on Chris Eubank Jr. next. Up next, we'll take a deeper dive into the other side of this blockbuster clash with Steve and with Duke. We're focusing on Chris Eubank Jr. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, and the former three-weight world champion, Duke McKenzie, alongside me. Still with us live in the studio as well is the Celtic Warrior, Steve Collins, and we're continuing our build-up to Ben against Eubank Jr. Now we shift our focus onto Chris Eubank Jr. A lot of mind games throughout the build-up. But Duke, what does he need to do to win this fight?
Eubank Jr. has to come in strong at the weight, and he has to weather the early storm, because you know it's coming, and then he can box his way, I think, quite clearly to a comfortable victory, because I think Conor Benn's going to struggle with two things. I think the actual weight, I think, might be a problem for him, because he's not used to fighting at this weight and going over the distance at this weight, and I think carrying that extra weight is going to help him initially, but long term I don't think it helps him. And I just feel that Eubank he's boxed at a higher caliber, he's boxed at a better class of fighter, and he knows his way around the ring. So if he doesn't get blown out, Eubank, then I see him winning reasonably comfortably.
Steve, Eubank Jr. has only found, for all the criticism of him, only found 3 too good for him. Liam Smith, as we've said, George Groves, Billy Joe Saunders in what was a close fight that if he got going earlier, I think many feel that he should have won. So he has campaigned at a high level.
Yeah.
But what's his route to victory? Is it simple? Is it just use your skill, use your size?
It's always simple till the bell rings.
Of course, it's simple in the studio, Steve.
I mean, his route to victory is to control Conor and not be caught silly, not to get drawn into Conor's fight. Make it his fight. Use his advantage, use his experience, his craftsmanship, his ring knowledge, and keep Conor at a distance, a safe distance, within his range, and which is outside of Conor's range. Control it. Don't get into a tear-up, because that's what Conor wants, and that's why Conor is telling him I'm going to come at you and so on, to maybe scare him. Eubank's got to use his boxing brain. If he gets into the tear-up, then that will suit Conor. If he controls himself and controls, to his advantage, which is height and experience, and not get into a brawl, that's his best way to succeed, in my opinion.
And how difficult is that? You've boxed in some very frenzied atmospheres in your career, both of you actually. How hard is it to keep your cool, to stick to the game plan, to not get drawn in, Steve, as you said?
It's not hard, because you're doing it throughout your career, and the longer you're doing it, the better you get at it. It's all about control, and you're in the gym and you're going through every day, you're training and preparing for the same fight, the same way. When the bell rings, it should become automatic. The only thing is, though, if you're, I don't know, if something else, if you're not focused, you can forget how you prepare that and do silly things. But they're both folks. They both know how they're going to fight. Conor said how he's going to fight, and Eubank, knows how he's going to fight. So, it's a case of which one makes the mistake.
Well, one thing we have to talk about, I wish we didn't, but I think we do, is what we're calling Egggate. Because the fight should be exciting and explosive, and all those kind of things.
No,
it was after the sheriff.
No, you're right to talk about it, because it is Easter, and egg is the topic.
You've just stolen my next line, honestly, Steve. You're two-weight world champion.
It's all about timing.
Exactly. Thank you very much indeed. As it was in your boxing career, of course. After the Sheremeta fight, Eubank smashed the egg in Conor Benn's face. He said, I contaminated him with an egg because that was the story around the failed drugs test and so on and so forth. And earlier this week, Tony Bellew caught up with talkSPORT Breakfast and gave his thoughts on Egggate.
I mean, Ali, listen, if a piece of that shell would have went in his eye, mate, the fight's off. Because I've got 2 scratched eyeballs from fighting myself, and let me tell you, mate, it's not nice. It's one of the worst pains you'll ever have. But listen, it's been done. Some find it funny, some don't. It's all part and parcel. When you get involved in these kind of things, you have to just accept it. And everyone's bought into the fight. We all know the drama, the rivalry's real. My greatest worry is these two boys don't bump into each other when no one's around. Yeah. Because if they do, it's happening. 100%. It's worse than that, mate. It's happening on site, I think.
What do you make of that, Steve? What Tony Bellew said?
Well, he's going from the egg onto them to a meeting by mistake. I agree with the meeting by mistake. Keep them apart until after the fight, everybody going to press conference trying to get an edge and upset your opponent. It's the opportunity you have to, to start the mind games. We've all done it. He, had this idea that, he really hasn't forgiven Conor. I won't let go of the fact that Conor tested positive for a substance, okay? If he did take a substance and he made a mistake, it was a stupid thing to do. No one regrets it more than him. But he hasn't, in preparation for this fight, he's taken no substance because he's been well tested and he's proven the point that no substance is in the system. So he done the past mistake, whether it was intentional or not. He's sorry for what happened. He wished it didn't happen. It's over and done with. So I think it's no advantage going into this fight. But it's Eubank trying to upset him, badmouth him, and going back to preparing for the fight, take him out of his control, upset him, make him angry, make him so angry he doesn't think and he does something stupid. So the egg thing to me, I know where he was coming from, and he hit him on the head. It probably afterwards it wasn't a good idea. Beforehand, it probably would have been funny. He thought it would have been a great idea, but it wasn't. We realised now that it didn't. He realised now it didn't turn out the way he probably anticipated it would, and I still think he's getting a really heavy fine, 100 grand for the hitting. But then I just found he was getting 10 million. So maybe the board needs to pay bills. So maybe the 100 grand probably is correct. And I don't know. It seems like a lot of money to me. I know if someone, in our title fights, if they find is 100 grand, we have to have another fight to pay it. A couple of fights to pay it. That alone coming out of your purse.
Yeah, I think Eggate was a stroke of genius. It's brought even more eyes to the sport. It's brought even more eyes to this particular fight. Fights on at Tottenham Hotspur football ground. They tell me that's a sellout, and it may not have been a sellout had it not have been for this bit of extra drama. Eubank is the master at selling the fights, and he's done it quite brilliantly. I think. I don't think Conor Benn was any danger whatsoever of going blind or getting eggshell in his eye.
You reckon he was exaggerating?
Exaggerating, absolutely, yeah. So I can't see it, Steve. But listen, like I say, I think it's a stroke of genius by Eubank, and like I say, the world and his brother's going to be watching this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve keeps taking my lines, Duke. I don't know what to do.
Oh, come on.
I don't know what to do.
This is your Shia reading.
I left it in the wrong place, obviously. I wanted to talk about corners as well. Of course, Conor Benn's been with Tony Sims since the start of his career, someone who's guided plenty of fighters down this path. Eubank Jr. has always been interesting, Duke, from a training perspective. He'll have Jonathan Banks for this fight, but of course, he's had his father. He's had Roy Jones, the man who wouldn't fight Steve. He's had Bomac and then switched to Jonathan Banks. I mean, what's your thought about that Eubank corner?
You just said something there. Roy Jones trained and coached him. Wasn't Roy Jones caught for having substance in the system and banned?
Yeah, absolutely.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
So he's no problem being coached by somebody who's committed that sin, and yet he's attacking Conor for the same mistake or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, anyway, the good thing about all different... I'm just making a point. Something maybe should remind him of that. He had a guy in his corner training him, supporting him, who was his coach, and it's allowed for him to do it, but not someone else to do it. Anyway, the good thing about, which was an advantage to me, having different trainers is education, different education, and it broadens your education. So having one trainer is great. You have the best trainer in the world. He tells you what he knows and passes on his talent and his knowledge. You have 4 or 5 different trainers. You've got 4 or 5 different guys passing on knowledge, and it's more knowledge. So having great trainers that he's had, I think it's a good education.
What's your view on that, Duke, in terms of that Eubank corner? It's certainly an interesting theme over the years, isn't it?
Well, me personally, I was always loyal, and I never had one coach in my whole career, and never, it served me well in Colin Smith, who sadly passed away. But I think everybody's different, and I don't think it can hurt Eubank having different people in his corner, or Ben having different people in his corner. But we're obviously talking about Eubank Senior. Will he be there? Won't he be there? I personally feel quite sorry for Eubank Senior. I think he's carrying such a heavy load, and things that nobody has even probably thought that the guy needs counselling. It's quite obvious. He's had the loss of a family member. He's carrying that. Now he's got a son that's been almost rejected him in public. That's quite humiliating from his perspective. And he's a father at the end of the day, and you don't want to fall out of your kids. The sad reality is they are, they're public property, and they're washing out their dirty linen in public. And that's the sad reality of life, of where we are now with social media and one thing or another. This should have been kept behind closed doors, and it hasn't, and it's come out into the public's, into the public. So I hope for Eubank's sake that he can find a way to come to terms that his dad isn't going to be there. I can't see him turning up. I can't. I think he's far too hurt on a personal level to turn up. It would be great if he did turn up, because he is such a character, and Steve knows that better than most. But I don't see him being in his son's corner for this fight.
Yeah, it's going to be, you're right, it's a sad story and it's an entirely different show, isn't it, to talk about it, but it will be touched upon this week. Now, up next, we continue our preview of Ben against Eubank Jr. We talk a little bit about history that one was very much part of, one of our guests, and the other will remember, just like I do, a remarkable time with Nigel Benn and Eubank Sr. Of course, the fight between the boys goes down at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next Saturday night. This is a Fight Night special on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing, and the place to watch Chris Eubank Jr. against Conor Benn next Saturday. You can buy it now at DAZN.com/boxing. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, with Duke McKenzie, with Steve Collins as well. We continue our build-up to Ben against Eubank. And of course, Chris Eubank Sr. has made his views fairly clear on all of this. He spoke to Seconds Out and gave his honest review earlier on this week on the fight that's taking place.
Because I will not be an accomplice to their stupidity, to their circus. You know, it's against the rules, what's happening is against the rules. 147 fighting 160 is against the rules. When Kell Brook was made to fight GGG, it's against the rules. You know, that boy had his eye socket smashed. This is what happens. The promoters, to them, it's just a game. But to the warriors, it's a way of life. Right. Junior, you're smashing an egg against this guy's face. I taught you that. I didn't teach you that. Who taught you that? Did Karen teach you that? Who taught you that? That's disgraceful. I'm gonna stand in your corner. You must be mad. You must be mad. I would never be in your corner. You're a disgrace. You're smashing an egg in someone's face, and then you're trying to justify it. There's no justification for that. There's nothing noble about that.
Duke, is he right, and are we missing the point?
I think so. I would tend to side with Eubank Senior. I do believe that he is incredibly hurt because that's not his style, and he would expect his son to be more like him in that respect. So I think that he's really, really hurt. And as I've said before, I think he's carrying a lot of excess baggage, and it's all just coming out because every time you see or hear Chris Eubank now, he's always crying. He's breaking down. I think he's probably going through a lot more than what we realise, and probably a lot more than what he's given actual credit for. I hope he can get peace and find some serious help.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, we'll see, won't we? If he is there next week, it would seem unlikely that, as you said, Steve, that somebody simply the best gonna boom out and Eubank Senior walks in. I think that makes it fairly definitive, the opinion he expressed there and has been expressing in recent weeks and months.
I have an opinion on what he said, but I'm not going to say it because if once again, listening to you, I've just found something out. If what you say is true, that he's going through his... I don't know what it is. Is it a breakdown or something?
No, I'm not suggesting he's having a breakdown at all. I just think he's had to deal with the loss of a family member.
Yeah.
His career's gone. He's had to go through divorce. His son now is rebelling against him in public. That's humiliating. And he's a one-man show, and he's got to carry all of this. And now, maybe he wants to be close to his son. Maybe he wants to help his son. But actually, Junior's saying, well, actually, Dad, I don't really want you in my corner. Or he's saying, maybe I do want you in my corner, but I want to have other people in my corner.
Well,
nobody's more well-equipped to teach that boy or has taught that boy more than what his dad has.
Well, I'm not going to make any comment because I'll never hit a man when he's down. And Chris Eubank was the best thing that ever happened to myself and Nigel Benn in our career. What he'd done for us, the attention, publicity, and money he brought into it, which was a lot of money in the day, probably not nowadays. If he's in a place now that's not a good place, I will not make any comment at all because I don't know. What I will say is that I hope it works out well for him and his son. I do believe that the son does said he loves him, so they'll sort the differences out. I wish him peace and happiness, and maybe next week when I bump into him, I'll probably change my opinion. I don't know, but going on what you're saying, I mean, this is like a drama. This is like a soap. It's like we're watching a character in Coronation Street growing up, and we're watching a character in EastEnders growing up, and all of a sudden they're going to cross over and fight each other, and it's on television every day, and it's a drama. This is like a drama, but there's a real fight attached to it. And this is why it's so big. It's not down to the amazing talent of the fighters who have talent, and it's going to be a great fight. There's so much drama involved in this. That's what it's like. It's a television series. That's why we're all watching it, and it's going to be a good fight also.
And there was drama back then too. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about happier times for everyone. Happier times, or very happy times for you anyway. 1990 and then 1993, of course, the two fights between the fathers. Eubank Senior winning the first by ninth round knockout. Extraordinary performance. I think a lot of people at the time didn't see that coming necessarily, certainly in terms of the general public. And then Eubank has since admitted he thinks Ben won the second fight, but of course it was a draw, and many felt that Nigel Benn was robbed in that fight. But just remember the build-up to those fights. It was extraordinary. I was looking back, Duke, and I'd forgotten that second fight. ITV had a special show, Jonathan Ross, with a celebrity audience, and it was hilarious because the cutaways to the, as they say in television, to the crowd. Fred Truman, Windsor Davis was there, Tucker Jenkins from Grange Hill, Todd Carty was there as well. But it was one of those celebrity audiences.
Do you know who else was sitting there in the audience?
Was it you?
Me.
Were you in there as well?
I was there, but they wouldn't let me in. That was Mickey Rourke came on with from LA with what's his name? The middleweight who fought the heavyweight. It was a great fighter. Oh God,
James Toney.
James Toney came on, and James Toney was throwing insults. I was sitting in the audience, and whilst this drama is going on between Nigel and Chris, I'm over in America. I'm fighting the Mike McCallums. I'm fighting the Tony Torrens. I'm fighting the Kevin Kilowatts, the Philadelphia Fires. I'm over there in wars, and I'm going back to work on the Monday, and I'm looking at these guys saying, I will beat these guys. I just need to get on the merry-go-round.
Well,
that's how I saw it, and it took me. I got there eventually, through pure fluke, my good luck, and unfortunately, the bad luck of another fighter who failed his medical. I was stepped in as a substitute. I wasn't voluntarily invited. And Barry Hines says on the documentary, he said there was a script, but Steve Collins never read it. And unfortunately, it was for Raymond Close, who's failed his medical. And I was there in short notice. They had me under control, they thought, and I was supposed to show up, lose, and continue on my career. But Barry Hines, as he said on record, I had a different script, and that was my chance to show that I did belong at that.
Well, seeing as we haven't got you for very long, we'll brush over those Ben Eubank fights. We'll talk about that another time, and we'll talk about that night in Mill Street, that first Eubank fight when, as you say, Ray Close was unfortunate. You got the chance, and boy, did you take it. What are your memories of that night?
Oh God, it was
so many.
It was like a movie. It was actually like a movie. I couldn't believe it was happening, and everything that was happening around it, the drama. Not like this drama, but it was a drama, and then the fight was going to be cancelled. Eubank was going to pull out because he didn't agree with this, didn't agree with that. And I upset him, and I was successful. But it's not point in talking about, because it's not my show tonight. It's about Conor Benn and Eubank Jr. We talk about them. Mine's a whole different. Actually, you can go and watch it on prime time one night Mill Street, and it's on TV now. You can see for yourself rather than listen to me explain to you what happened on the night.
Well, that was a good plug for the movie. Can I just ask you one other thing? Because everyone's going to
that wasn't on your script, was it?
Everyone's going to be. You've done enough egg jokes for tonight. Everyone's going to be thinking one thing and want me to ask you about the hypnotist and want me to ask you about the headphones in the corner and all that. Can you at least talk us through that?
Can I have the opportunity to say something? There's a Stevie Collins Jr. who retired professional 2 years ago, and I'd like him to make a comeback. And I believe in 12 months' time, if he wanted to, I'd have him ready to fight the winner. And I've no doubt history would repeat itself.
Fantastic. You've got no doubt that history would repeat itself.
I know what he can do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's your challenge that you're throwing down live on Fight Night.
My son is retired now. He's a fireman. He's got kids, and he seems happy. But maybe it's the moment. I'm getting sucked into the moment. But I'd love to get him out in a record.
Wouldn't that be something?
In 12 months' time, he'd be ready. He has come down. He's a big kid, but he has fought at super middleweight, so he could fight at super middleweight. And yeah.
One thing I just want to try and put this in. I want to put this all in context. Steve brushed away my question about the hypnotist, which is fair enough.
I'll go back to it. I mean, it happened in the first.
You've been asked it a billion times.
We did use it in the first fight. It was great, and he had his reasons and his excuses. So I said, fair enough. Well, what happened in the second fight? There was no, there was no trap. There was no surprise. So, the second fight, I just beat him.
Duke, I just wanted to ask you the context of it all, of that time, with those remarkable fights, with Michael Watson as well, of course, involved in those incredible fights, and Steve, just a little bit beyond that as well. We're going to talk about Hagler Hearns after the break and the Four Kings, but that era in British and Irish boxing was just astonishing, wasn't it? And young people listening now do not know how big it was. Those fights on ITV, 16 million, 14 million viewers for those fights.
We were privileged to some of the hardest, best, brutal, anybody can describe the fights that Steve was involved with, Nigel Benn, Chris Eubanks, Michael Watson, as you've already stated. That was the best fight in the best, and it was a very special time for world boxing, and you really had to be there to witness it, to really appreciate it, because those days are clearly gone now, and all we can do is marvel in it and revel in it and watch it and relive those moments, because they were truly memorable.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts, Steve. We're going to go to a break. We're going to let you go before we talk about Hagler and Hearns. But
so I'm not here for Hagler and Hearns talk. Am I? Well, I shared the gym with Marvin Hagler. I met Leonard, met them all. Okay, Thomas Hearns is one of the nicest guys I ever met. when I met him, I was an up-and-coming fighter, and he knew who I was because I fought one of his fighters. And the fact that he recognised me, a small-time up-and-coming professional, and spoke to me about my career, totally blew me away. And Thomas Hearns comes across as being the mean bad guy. What an absolute lovely man, and I really think nothing but good about him. He didn't show that in his fights, but he's a lovely guy.
That's great to get that perspective. We're going to go to a break, and I'm going to try and twist Steve's arm and see if he'll stay with us to talk about Marvin Hagler for 5 more minutes if his cab might wait. But we'll see. He's going to stay. That's fantastic news. Absolutely,
I'm not paying for the cab.
Absolutely brilliant. So we'll keep him waiting.
The clock is ticking. It's not in my time.
He can go and have a sandwich, and you're going to talk about the Petronelli's gym with us. That makes me very, very happy indeed. Still to come, you might have guessed, we marked 40 years. That was last Monday, since the legendary war between Hagler and Hearns, the best short fight in boxing history. We'll be joined by the Boxing Hall of Fame announcer, as they say in the States, Al Bernstein, who was there, of course, ringside on the night. Can't wait for this. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT.
Hamilton, now at Ferrari, dares to dream of a record 8th F1 world title. The Tifosi will be hoping the Brits can bring glory back to Italy. To many, Ferrari and Formula One are inseparable. They're the only team in the sport today to have competed in the first World Championship in 1950, are the most successful team in history, and have built some absolutely gorgeous cars. Their first driver's title was won in 1952 by Alberto Ascari. Considered one of F1's most dominant and best-loved champions, he drove the iconic Ferrari 500 and defended his title the year after. It was Juan Manuel Fangio in his Ferrari 250 who secured the team's next driver's title in 1956. Remember, he was world champion 5 times with 4 different teams. Mike Hawthorne, Phil Hill and John Surtees also won titles for Ferrari in the 50s and 60s, and the cars back then were beautiful, and they even sounded great, didn't they? Anyway, Ferrari went 11 years without winning a title until Niki Lauda won in 1975 in the iconic 312T. Throughout much of the 80s and 90s, though, Ferrari looked like they'd never go all the way again. Le Professeur Alain Prost came pretty close in 1990, but lost out to his bitter rival and former teammate at McLaren, Ayrton Senna. It was only when John Todt recruited a swathe of staff from outside of Italy, including Michael Schumacher, that the glory days returned 21 years after their last driver's title. The turn of the century saw the prancing horse sprint to an unprecedented 5 consecutive championship doubles. And after Schumacher left, Kimi Raikkonen reclaimed the driver's title immediately. But despite employing 1,500 people, the Iceman remains the last Ferrari world champion. So, 16 constructors' titles, 7 more than McLaren, and 15 drivers' titles, 4 more than, again, McLaren. Ferrari are truly Formula One's top team. Forza Ferrari.
And welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farrar, with Duke McKenzie. I am thrilled to say that Steve Collins, it's because he did all the egg jokes, he nicked them, he decided to stay and talk a little bit about Hagler Hearns and his experience with Marvin Hagler. We've still got so much to come on the show. 40 years since Hagler Hearns. We'll be joined by the Hall of Fame commentator Al Bernstein to take us back to one of boxing's greatest nights. This is Fight Night here on talkSPORT. Well, it was known quite simply as The Fight. That was the tagline for Hagler Hearns because it didn't need anything else. There was a huge press tour before it. They went around 22 cities in a couple of weeks. The great story about the jets, of course. They had different jets, but they both complained. In the end, they had to lease a special jet, so they both had the same. And it was a tour full of arguments, I think, before it. But, Steve, you stayed with us because, of course, you love the fight like all fight fans do. And I know you're looking forward to talking to Al as well. But talk about your time. You were in Patton Goody Petronelli's gym at the start of your career. Now, just to be clear, this was after Hagler Hearns. This would be ahead of Hagler Leonard, the later fight in '87. But what was that experience like? We hear so much about that gym, about Patton Goody Petronelli, about Hagler in the gym. So special, wasn't it?
It was what I used to watch Hagler fight, and I realised this is where I need to be. If I have it, they'll bring it out of me. So I do recall when I arrived, it was in Brockton, Massachusetts. And Brockton, Massachusetts was the home of Rocky Marciano. And Goody Petronelli and Rocky Marciano grew up together. They both were Italian-American descent, and they both grew up in the same neighborhood. They were very good friends. So there was a great history there. And then obviously, Goody and Pat, they opened the gym in Brockton, Massachusetts. And it was the home of Marvin Hagler. And I arrived down, knocked on the door, and introduced myself to Goody Petronelli and who I was. I'm amateur Irish champion. So I'm going to take over from Marvin. I'll be the next middleweight champ. And he said, that's great, come on in. Nowadays, you'd probably call the police, say there's some crazy lunatic here, take him away, he's escaping the mental. But that's straight away, the mindset of him was, yeah, come on in. And then eventually realised he kind of threw me in the deep end with a couple of guys, Rockin' Robbie Sims, Marvin's half-brother, who to me was a contender and a genuine world champion. But because his brother was the undisputed middleweight, he was on the back burner. And by the time he got his chance, he was a burnt-out fighter. So, you know, Robbie Sims was good enough to be a world champion, so he became my sparring partner. So after a couple of spars with him, I was holding my own, so they knew then I had some potential, and they gave me time and brought me to the gym. And I just remember one time on the bags, and Marvin Hagler's in the bag beside me, and this is, you know, my idol. And he picked up my towel and wiped the sweat, and I looked at him and he said, oh, sorry, I didn't know that was your towel. I said, no, go on using it. I'll never wash it again. I'll frame it, you know. I mean, he was such a down-to-earth guy, and he gave us time. He would talk to us young fighters in the gym. He didn't care. You were a fighter and he respected you. And he even came to some of my fights. And I just thought, what an amazing man. I really did. As a fighter, I looked up to him. They say don't meet your heroes. I met my hero. And I was even more impressed having met him. I just thought he was just a really nice, down-to-earth man who could fight. And it stuck with me. And the Petronellis, it was a great... I would have stayed there. But the problem was Nigel Benn ruined it for me. Because Nigel Benn done something that no British contender ever done in history. Nigel Benn came over to fight for the world title, and they're all saying a British boxer. They thought this, you know, he'd stand up like, you know, the old British boxers did. And then this Nigel Benn came in and he absolutely smashed everybody. Doug DeWitt, Rockin' Robbie Sims, you know, he beat them all. And he smashed them and took the titles back to the UK. Iran Barkley.
Yeah, it
just goes on. I mean, you know, and he took the titles back to the UK, and I'm in America, and I'm in the wilderness. I'm over there. I'm middleweight champion of the United States. I'm ranked in the top 10. There's no one to fight. There's these guys, Eubank and Ben, have to, you know, I've got all the titles in Britain, and no one knows me over there. So I had to start all over again. But that's why I left the Petronellis, because I had to leave. There was nothing for me there anymore, and they were semi-retired because Marvin had confirmed he wasn't coming back. You know, they were wealthy, they were getting on in life, and the gym became a hobby for them, and the hunger wasn't there anymore, and I sensed that, so I knew it was time for me to move on. So Nigel Benn is the reason why I left Brockton. Sorry.
There you go. No, it's amazing to get the insight. Yeah. So let's rewind then to the 15th of April 1985, which was a Monday night. That fight was on a Monday night. The big fights were then because of the cinema releases, wasn't it? At the weekend, they wanted the cinemas full of films at the weekend, and they knew they could sell the closed circuit. Top
Rank was usually Monday and Tuesday nights as well. We always fought on Monday or Tuesday in Top Rank,
But it was all because of that closed circuit sale. That was why they did it on a Monday night, because the cinemas would have been empty, and they knew they could pack them out with big fights. And it was in the outdoor arena at Caesar's Palace. You talk actually about Ben and Barkley, that astonishing one round. It was incredible. But let's just, from a fighter's perspective, talk about the first round, Duke, of Hagler-Hearns.
I hadn't seen anything like that before, and I probably still haven't seen anything like that to this day. Reg Guttridge, the late Reg Guttridge, described it as 3 rounds of complete mayhem. But when you talk about mayhem, you just think they're just throwing punches in the general direction of where you think the punches are going to land. But their shots wasn't. Everything was calculated. And I think when Tommy Hearns hits Marvin Hagler in the first round with an uppercut, which would have probably knocked out an elephant at that point, that just told you just how good Hagler's chin was. I mean, he took some absolutely unbelievable shots from Tommy Hearns. But, you know, he gave as good as he got. And in the end, obviously, he wears him down and breaks him out and knocks him out. But you know, those fights are very, very far and few between. The only one I can remember of being of that magnitude, with that much spite and that much venom, was Mike McCallum and Julian Jackson. That's another great fight, but we're not talking about that. But that's the only one I can remember being anywhere near as close between two world-class fighters at the top of their game. You know, punches, good chins, every punch you can possibly imagine. They had it, and like I say, just for kicks, sometimes I put on the Hagler and Hearns fight and watch it and relive it because it's that good.
Yeah, and we talked about carrying your power up. Everyone wondered, would Hearns carry his from light middle to middle, having, of course, been world champion at welter as well. And he caught Hagler. My mate Frank was saying this week to me that, has anyone ever caught anyone with a better shot than that and not knocked them down? That uppercut that he caught Hagler with. And then he cut him, of course, and it added to the drama. But Hearns probably didn't carry his power, did he?
Well, Haynes was a lightweight international amateur lightweight champion, so he did move up weights, but he had the power. He had the stance and he had the angles and the way of landing correctly. And the more weight he had, probably the harder he punched. I'm sure as he went up in weights, his punching power got harder. But there was no other way Marvin Hagler could have beaten him other than what he'd done, because Marvin was a powerhouse, and he knew that Tommy Hearns wasn't physically as strong as him. And the longer Tommy Hearns was in there, the more dangerous it was for Marvin. So Marvin's attitude was, I got to get this guy out as soon as I can, jump on him, use my strength and power, and just maul him and attack him and just keep punching him. And because when my punches land, my punches will affect him more than his affect me, because Marvin knew he had a good chin. I mean, we saw that with John the Beast Mugabe.
Yeah, it's another good fight.
I mean, I honestly believe that probably took a lot out of Marvin Hagler. I mean, he exchanged shots at him, and Mugabe just landed shots, and Marvin just fought through them. So he had an amazing resistance, and he could take a good shot, and he knew that he had to get Tommy Hearns out quick, and he did. If he'd have if the fight had went on longer, maybe Tommy Hearns would have cut him and probably stopped him on the cut. But Marvin knew I had to just get in and attack him, just like on the street, just get him out as quick as I can, and that's what he did.
Yeah, the legendary chin of Hagler, of course, taking those shots from Tommy Hearns. And Al Michaels said in the commentary, didn't he, and Al Bernstein, who we're going to talk to in a moment as well, that it was Hagler needed to turn it into a street fight, and that's exactly what he did. And he got in Hearns' face, and he was just too strong for him in the end, and wore him down. And the great drama in that third round, it was 8 minutes and 52 seconds of absolute mayhem and completely unforgettable. And we will talk to Al in a moment's time. But Al Bernstein will join us to relive Hagler Hearns. He'll share some iconic memories, and he'll talk to Steve on whose fights he commentated a great deal. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farrow, with Duke McKenzie and Steve Collins, and with, we hope, Al Bernstein, but he hasn't joined the call yet. We've kept Steve waiting for this. Al commentated on so many of his fights. Of course, he commentated on Hagler Hearns as well, but he hasn't joined the call yet. It's one of those, we're in the lap of the gods. Al's over in Vegas, and my producer's going to tell me as soon as he can if that red light clicks and Al joined us. In the meantime, we continue with our memories of Hagler Hearns. And one thing that's extraordinary about that night, when you see that final image, Duke, of Tommy Hearns cradled in the arms of Richard Steele, beaten and just completely exhausted, if anyone had told you at that point, Hagler celebrating in one corner, Hearns in the desert sky, just bent over double and could barely stand, from that moment on, Hagler would fight twice more. And Hearns would fight 25 times more and have great success. Hagler beat Mugabe, of course. Steve's talked about how tough that fight was, and then lost to Sugar Ray Leonard. Just extraordinary again. We started the night talking about this amazing sport of boxing, and that sums it up, doesn't it? In the end, it was Hearns who had so much more left.
Well, I mean, Tommy Hearns is a phenomenal athlete, and I'm sure his career was made longer, the fact that he was so tall, 6'1", 6'2", I think, ridiculous reach, and carried the power up with him. So, I mean, at one point in the Hagler-Hearns fight, when Richard Steele inspected the cut over Hagler's eye and looked like he was going to stop the fight at one point, Hagler went to another level and went, he went to war with Hearns from the beginning, but he just seemed to go to another level. But once he got on the inside of Tommy Hearns, he was relentless, wasn't he? Got his head on his chest and just never stopped punching and ruined him in the end.
Yeah, and Hearns, the point was he didn't. He ruined him on the night, didn't he?
On the night,
but just that extraordinary. He had 25 more fights, came back the following March. Yeah, he beat Dennis Andrews, who we were talking about off air earlier.
That fight was unbelievable.
Absolutely,
the Andrews fight. I've watched that fight so many times. Tommy Hearns' footwork in that fight was absolutely on point. The way he steps off and hits Dennis Andrews flush, steps across him, hits him with the right hand, steps back, hits him with right hands, and then steps back and hits him with like check hooks. He really done a number on Dennis Andrews that night. And I remember that fight really well.
And after Hagler, only two further fighters beat Hearns. One was Iran Barkley, who beat him twice. So we talked about Iran Barkley with Nigel Benn, of course. The other was Uriah Grant when Hearns damaged his knee. And so, it's a win, but it was for a reason. So Hearns' sort of stickability and durability was incredible. You will have some insight, Steve, into Marvin Hagler in his state of mind. Of course, the story always goes he was so disgusted by the decision against Sugar Ray Leonard that was it. But was it sort of naturally coming to an end anyway, did you think, after, remember, a long reign at middleweight,
We have spoke off the raid, and I won't go into too much, but, I'm not making excuses for Marvin. Marvin wasn't... Leonard saw what was going on, and he knew he was slipping, and he knew the time was right, because Marvin, as far as we were concerned, was retired, and he came back for the fight with Leonard, which he always wanted, and he came back for the good payday. He didn't need it, but it was still there. He always needed it, and he wasn't living the good life that he was living when he was champion. And you can't abuse the body and expect it to repair itself when you're getting on in years. And I'm not taking anything away from Sugar Ray Leonard, but he timed it well. And Marvin knew after the fight that if he in a rematch he just would be even weaker, because he knew his body wasn't where it used to be, and he wasn't taking care of himself, and he lost because I think 5 years earlier, I think Marvin probably could have stopped Leonard. I think if Marvin Hagler at his best could have beat Leonard at his best, but it was, I suppose it could be taken away from Leonard, but Marvin had slipped a bit, and I was a witness to that. I knew what was going on, and he wasn't right. He hadn't got the strength, and he wasn't living clean. And it was good timing by Leonard, but he still beat him. And it was very close, but he just done enough to win.
Yeah, 115, 113. I think a lot of people think that fight was quite easy to score. It's always seen as very, very controversial, but a lot of people think you can clearly score it for Leonard. But these fights, you just watch them back over and over, don't you? It was an amazing era. But one thing I wanted to...
parts of that fight, when Marvin had him on the ropes and he was arm punching. Marvin Hagler never arm punched in his life, and I thought, I can see, you would see, we'd see. No, that wasn't the guy. That wasn't the day when the punches that were landing on Tommy Hearns. He's not punching with his body now. It's not there.
The Marvin Hagler that beat Wilfred Ciprian and Mustafa Hampshaw, James Hard Rock Green, that Marvin Hagler was just a wrecking machine. And you're right, Stephen, saying as much as, he wasn't quite the same in the Leonard fight, but he was still, I still thought he won, Steve. In America, when they score on aggression.
To be honest with you, you're right. You could argue it. You could argue, and we've seen decisions that were a lot worse.
Yeah.
Due to the promoters and so on. But I think the writing was on the wall. This is probably going to be Marvin's last fight, regardless. Where it wasn't Leonard's, and boxing is a business, and people at the top don't really care about the boxers. They care about the profit.
Sure.
And that's what makes a good promoter. If you become involved in the boxing and become passionate about the fighter, you'll end up broke as a promoter. Promoter's got to be a businessman, and it's all about turning profit. And if you've got a guy who's going to beat the guy who's going to be around for 10 years and making millions, and this guy's going to have one more fight and he beats your guy that's going to be around, you don't want that to happen because it's bad business. So if it's close, you want to go where the money is.
Do you not think also, though, the fact that Marvin Hagler stated before the fight, before he boxed Sugar Ray Leonard, that was going to be his last fight? Do you think that hurt him?
Well, he's just confirmed to the promoter what's going on. Win, lose, or draw, he's out.
Finished, wasn't he?
This guy's, Leonard had a lot more fights left in him. Marvin Hagler was a 15-round fighter. He even accepted more money to fight 12 rounds. So maybe he knew himself at the back of his mind it wasn't there, but he's going to go for the last payday. Maybe he thought he could have done it. Maybe it was this. I really don't know what went on, but I can tell you from my own experience that he wasn't.
The fighter that
I can't take away from Leonard, but I probably am saying it. He'd been in a lot of wars, and Marvin probably wasn't as young as people thought he was either. That's another story.
Yeah.
When you're living in the neighbourhood, you know what I mean? He probably had a different true birth date.
That's what was always said, wasn't it? I just want to ask you, it seems like Al still hasn't joined us. I've given Al the big build-up. Steve stayed to talk to Al, and here we are just talking about the Four Kings in general. But talking of the Four Kings, let's move it on to that. 9 incredible fights, of course. Hagler-Hearns, the one that always stands out, but never forget Hearns-Leonard, of course, 2 incredible fights as well. But you both have a favourite Four King, don't you? And I think it might surprise people. So go on then, Duke. You first of all, your favourite fighter of all time.
It has to be Roberto Duran.
Yeah.
Given the fact that Roberto Duran is 5'6", he had no business fighting Marvin Hagler and taking Hagler. He give Hagler a good fight. And when you look at the styles and the way that they all sort of intertwined, and A beats B, B beats C, C beats D, and then D beats A. We're talking about obviously Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, Duran. Duran didn't have no business fighting those guys, but he competed against all of them. Beat Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard was the golden boy of world boxing. That victory for Duran has to rank right up there with probably one of the greatest victories, certainly in my lifetime. I'm not old enough to have lived in the 20s or the 30s, and I'm sure there were great fights of those generations, but certainly one of the greatest fights I've ever seen was Duran v Leonard. But then when you look at what Hagler did to Tommy Hearns, and then you look at what Tommy Hearns did to Roberto Duran, and then you look at what Sugar Ray Leonard did to Tommy Hearns, and then obviously Hearns boxed Leonard again and never got a decision. He gave it a draw, but everybody knows that Tommy Hearns won the second fight, and I think Ray Leonard has actually admitted that since then. So the Fabulous Four, well, they really are in a league of their own.
Absolutely, Steve. We're running out of time. Thank you so much for staying, and I'm sorry we could, but talk to us about Roberto Duran just finally.
Yeah. My ex-brother had just moved to emigrate to Montreal, and he actually got a ticket to that fight. And my dad used to talk about Roberto Duran because we were young at the time, and I'd never seen him fight. We didn't have the big TV networks then. And I watched that fight, and he actually blew me away. And my brother told me a story that after the fight, something like 15 minutes afterwards, Roberto Duran was out of his dressing room, his hair soaking wet, climbing across chairs to get a hold of somebody who was shouting abuse to him at the ringside. So that's the type of guy he was. He was crazy. But it was the one time that Roberto Duran sucked Sugar Ray Leonard into his fight. Leonard made a mistake and fought
him.
Duran's fight, and he paid for that mistake. Whereas the next time around, he didn't get involved. He stayed away from him, and he stole him. He frustrated him. He got the no mask because Duran just wasn't interested in this stupid game. He was basic. He wanted to fight, and to me, and I've actually met him personally. He's a lovely guy. He's a funny guy, but to me, in our time, he's probably one of the greatest fighters in our time of all, really. And he's a lightweight who fought up as far as
9 stone 9, and won world titles right through to 12 stone 7.
Yeah, incredible. And Iran Barkley's been a theme tonight.
Sure.
Another, what a
Duran beat the
stunning nights. Absolutely incredible. But listen, Steve, thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry we couldn't bring you Al, but you brought us a lot of joy. So we're going to have to go to a break, but I really appreciate you joining us. Up next, we'll be joined by Muay Thai fighter Ryan Moore, who takes on Gary Lewis for the inaugural LFN Silver Welterweight Championship next Saturday night. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, and with Duke McKenzie as well. Steve Collins has left us, but what a joy that was. And talking of joys, it's a real pleasure to say that joining us live on Fight Night is Muay Thai fighter Ryan Moore. Ryan joins us now. And Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, you're a week away from fighting for the inaugural LFN Silver Welterweight Championship. Tell us, first of all, how much it would mean to you to make history and bring that belt home.
It means everything for me. I mean, since I was a child, I've been wanting to win European titles, world titles when I was an adult. I did it all as a kid, but to do it as an adult now, it means a lot.
Now, the fight's live on the talkSPORT MMA YouTube channel, which, of course, is great news. What can fans tuning in expect from you under the lights? What are you going to provide for us?
I'm going to put a big show for the home crowd and look to win that strap by any means necessary.
That's nice and simple. I like it. Can you tell us a bit about your journey in this sport then? Of course, we're here as a boxing show, but we're delighted to spread it out to combat sports, to other art forms, to the art of 8 limbs. But tell us about your journey. How did you get into this sport?
I first started Thai boxing when I was 8 years old. As I just saw one of my dad's mates was fighting at the time, and I was like, I want to do it. And then I was in the gym, and then I had my first fight when I was 9 years old. And then I just fought a lot as a junior. I had about 40 plus fights as a junior, and then I turned pro at 17, had my first pro fight, and I've had 14 fights so far.
Well, that's remarkable. And I mean, sorry to cut you off there, but you presumably have travelled as well with it. It must have been a great chance to travel the world and gone, of course, to those infamous gyms in Thailand. Can you talk us through some of those experiences?
Yeah, well, just fighting. It took me to Thailand. It's took me to Italy. As a kid, I've fought all over the shop, all over the UK. It's provided me with so many opportunities. And like some of them just sleeping in the gym in Thailand and training. It's done a lot.
Yeah, remarkable. I mean, Josh Thompson, the UFC fighter, is adept at your art. We can say that. The former UFC fighter who beat Nate Diaz. I remember talking to him about some of the journeys, some of the training journeys that you go on, and some of those gyms in Thailand being, in a way, the purest experience in terms of fight sports, but some of the toughest experiences as well. Did you learn an awful lot there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going over there after my fight on the 30th of April. I'm going for 6 months to live and breathe it. So it's where you got to be.
And just in terms of general fight sports, I wonder where this takes you. So obviously there's a route potentially to MMA. You're still young. There's a route potentially. Niall Brown's taken a route to boxing, hasn't he? I'm sure you know Niall. Or are you just absolutely focused on this?
So far, I'm just focused on Thai boxing itself. Hopefully the goal is for me down the line is to fight and the likes of like RWS and One Championship. I don't know if you've ever heard of like One Championship.
Of course, yeah.
That's the goal.
So One Championship would be the goal, and of course they, have an MMA touch as well, don't they? But they also focus a great deal on Muay Thai, and that would almost be the pinnacle, wouldn't it, for you? Certainly the pinnacle in terms of money for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah. I mean, I'm only young, so I could still learn like jiu-jitsu, wrestling, but I feel like I fell in love with Thai boxing, and that's my route.
I'm interested about, I'm going to use a word that I know boxers don't like, so apologies to you, Duke. In terms of striking, I'm interested what you learn from other combat sports, if anything, about that. Obviously, you're able to use more than a boxer is, but what do you admire about the striking, or dare I say punching, with bigger gloves that we see in boxing?
To be fair, I watch a lot more boxing than Thai boxing itself. I love watching the boxing. I mean, I watched it since I was a kid. I never used to watch the Thai boxing fights, and I love the way that they move, the footwork. Some stuff you can't get away with, but some I like to implement into my game.
I was going to say that obviously Muay Thai fighters are brilliant in the clinch, aren't they? That would be what you would bring into boxing, say that's a great strength of yours. But the judgment of distance of fighters, the ability to find the leverage, the ability to measure punches, I'm sure that's something that you take into Muay Thai, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And Duke, I was going to say, Duke, sorry, you come in. What's your view on all of this?
How you doing, Ryan, mate? You're all right? I've never met you before, mate. It's quite exciting. You know what? You're very fresh-faced, champ. You're very, you look young. You should have called yourself a college boy or something like that. You look like you just come out of college. But would you ever make the transition? Would you ever make the transition into boxing? Do you think? Because we see it all the time now, where other martial art people come into boxing, and some are successful and some aren't. But would you ever do? Because you're obviously young enough. You say you love boxing, right?
Yeah, I love watching the boxing, but I did try it as a kid, and they did try and persuade me. There was like trying to get me to come to the boxing, but I think I fell in love with Thai boxing too much, and I don't think I want to leave it.
And tell us what Gary Lewis brings. Tell us how you're going to beat him, why you're going to beat him.
I think we're very similar. I think we're both technical fighters. There's different styles within Thai boxing. People like to punch, people like to clinch, and I think we're both very similar in style, but I just believe I do it better.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We certainly wish you and him, actually, a great deal of luck. And you know what? You come on these things, Ryan, let's be honest about this business. You come on to plug things. You come on because you want to become known. You come on because you want to get people onto that talkSPORT YouTube, the MMA channel, to watch this. Having spoken to you now for 8 or 9 minutes, I'm going to watch this, and I'm going to be cheering you on. I think it's great. I think you're fantastic. You come across brilliantly.
You've got two more fans now, champ.
Yeah, you've got 2 more fans, exactly, and hopefully more and more. And hopefully
that's 2 more than I have.
Yeah, and hopefully that journey eventually ends at the One Championship. Well, we really do wish you well, and all the very best for next week, Ryan.
Thanks for having me on. It's a massive opportunity for myself and for Thai boxing as well.
Well, keep smiling, keep being fresh-faced, keep talking positively, keep showing respect. You're going to go a long, long way. We'll be watching you next week, mate.
I will do. Thank you.
Good luck, champ.
Great stuff. Yeah, good luck. Great to hear from Ryan, and I mean that as well. Wasn't he great?
Yeah, very, very good. Wish them all the best. So if he wants to make transition to boxing, then I know a little coach in Croydon might look after him.
Here you go. There's an offer. There's an offer you might not be able to refuse. Now, you can watch Ryan Moore, just to remind you, take on Gary Lewis for the LFN Welterweight Championship next Saturday night on the talkSPORT MMA YouTube channel. And meanwhile, you can keep up to date with everything in the world of MMA at the moment. The latest episode of Uncaged with Adam Catterall and Brendan Loughnane is out now. So, yeah, much still to talk about. Up next, Duke and myself, we're going to make our final predictions. I always look forward to this bit. On the highly anticipated rematch between Ben Whittaker and Liam Cameron. We're going to go back to where we started. Whittaker against Cameron, the rematch, this Easter Sunday on the talkSPORT Network and talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. This is Fight Night on talkSPORT. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Dave Farah, and with Duke McKenzie. It has been an absolute pleasure to spend an evening with you and with Steve Collins as well, and with Ryan Moore. Wasn't he great? Sadly not with Al Bernstein, but hey-ho, you can't have everything. We still had a good chat about the Four Kings, and really, Duke, we're going to finish where we started. We're going to talk about Ben Whittaker and Liam Cameron. The fight tomorrow night, live with us here on talkSPORT. What are your sort of, as we round in towards our final thoughts, what are your thoughts on tomorrow night? It's a big night for both fighters, but particularly for Whittaker.
It's a big night for both fighters. They both have to produce their best form. For Whittaker particularly, he really has to step up, because obviously he may feel that he's let himself down. I don't really think he feels he's let anybody else down, but he may feel like he's let himself down. So there's a lot of hype surrounding around this guy, and he has to live up to that hype now, because sometimes when you get in it, I've been in a position before where you don't quite perform, right? You get out there, you're in an 8 or a 10 round fight and you don't quite perform. You run a bit on a flat line. So in your very next fight, you say to yourself, I've got to put that sort of wrong right. Do you see what I mean? The fact that he's got to do it against the guy that he's already been in with, well, that level of expectation now is just heightened. So by his own admission, he is the complete showman. But he has to put that to one side, I think, if he's going to get victory.
And every fighter comes up against that opponent that tests them, that can push them all the way, that sometimes is all wrong for them.
Mm-hmm.
If Ben Whittaker fails against Liam Cameron, he did not want that opponent to be this one this early in his career, and it sets Whittaker at a level. That's the problem if he were to lose tomorrow night.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he's not even thinking about losing, I'm sure. And as I've said previously, class is permanent and form is temporary, while Cameron's form has been good, but the overall class has to lie with Whittaker, because he's proven at this level. Let's put it like that. So I would expect him to win. If he doesn't win, then really he'll have to question his career. It's not just to lose in the fight. He'll have to question his career, because boxing's all about levels, and as you start to go through the gears and go through these different levels, then this is the next step up for him. After this could potentially come a good domestic fight. Whether that be for a British Championship, to see if he's the best in the country, and then it goes from there. But he can't count his chickens before they hatch, and he has to put this wrong that he has to put it right. It's as simple as that, and it's as black and white as that. He has to go out there tomorrow night and really do a number on Cameron.
Could Andy Lee be the name that we're all sort of singing afterwards? Could that be what makes the difference, do you think?
Could be the difference. I mean, it's easy to say he's got a new coach and he's got a new sort of impetus and he's got a new sort of vigour about him, but he should have had that anyway. So the fact remains is, I don't really know if Andy Lee would have had enough time to make that much of a difference. Sure, we can have the sort of bounce on effect on him. I've got a new coach, he's shown me one or two new things, but for Andy Lee to really cement his style and implement the tactics that he needs at all the levels in his career, he's going to need more time. But it really just comes down to Whittaker, cutting out the showboating and getting down to work and showing the world what he's really capable of. I think he's potentially a world beater. I think he's that good, because you have to have more than just a pretty face and flashy skills to win a world championship. And once he has to listen, the best thing that can happen to Whittaker tomorrow, if he goes in there and he gets into the trenches early with Cameron and he blows him out, because then he doesn't have to rely on the flashiness. Do you see what I mean?
He wins Cameron's fight effectively.
Well, then he shows a different side of his whole character. He shows what he's really about, because as a boxer, you have to have more than just boxing skills to win fights. Do you see what I mean? So I really hope that we see a different side of Whittaker tomorrow. And yeah, I hope he gets in there and gets into the trenches and really does a number on Cameron. Don't get me wrong, Cameron's a nice guy, and should he win, then that elevates him to a whole new stratosphere of fame, because he's never had what Whittaker's got. So it's like a trade-off, really. Whittaker wants what Cameron's got, and Cameron wants what Whittaker's got. Do you see what I mean? So I mean, it's a good fight. And I'm sure we're going to get the best of both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds. It will be live with us here on talkSPORT as well. A quick look at the rest of the undercard. The first thing I just wanted to point out to you, we were talking about this beforehand, Bradley Goldsmith fights Troy Coleman for the Midlands area title at middleweight tomorrow night. Now, we wouldn't normally, with respect to both fighters, spend a lot of time previewing that, but the trainer of Bradley Goldsmith is one Luca Ingle, the grandson of Brendan Ingle, and it would be, of course, his first title as a trainer.
Right.
What a story that would be, and what a lineage that is, by the way.
Sure. I mean, you know, that whole Ingle camp was synonymous over the years for turning out world champions, and they had this really elusive style. He started right back from the days of Harold Bommel Graham, and obviously more recently with Nazim Hamed, Johnny Nelson, you know, to name but a few. They were turning out champions for fun at one point. So will the grandson continue that sort of legacy? Will he train his fighters the same way? Are we going to see the same elusive, hands down, you know, sort of don't hit me approach? And you know, is this kid going to be any good? You know, I quite like domestic title fights. I do, area title fights, because they are real fights. You know, when those guys turn up, they've come to fight. So I'll be looking forward to that one.
Yeah, area title fights at your call are a very special thing. Southern area,
they're always special.
They still are as well.
Yeah, those guys come to fight because they're the bread and butter of the sport. That's where you're supposed to start. And like I say, this is an area title fight, which I'm looking forward to.
Just a quick word. You mentioned Bomber Graham, Harold Graham, just tremendous Ingle fighter. We've talked a lot tonight, of course, about Ben and Eubank. A lot of people said at the time that actually he was the best, that he would have beaten them all. What's your view on that? I hate to put you on the spot, but he was fantastic, wasn't he?
Put me on the spot by all means. Harold Graham has to be the most unluckiest and the most talented British boxer never to have won a world championship. He was that good. But he boxed in an era where the world champions were exceptional. You know, when you start talking about Julian Jackson and Mike McCallum, you know, those guys they didn't play around. And they're two of the Julian Jackson, I think his record at that time was something like 28 fights with 27 knockouts. So, you know, Harold went in against one of the hardest punchers of the middleweight division. And all right, he came up second best. And against Mike McCallum, the body snatcher, who of equal measure, you know, McCallum could box and he would just take your strength away and ruin you. So, you know, I mean, it's no disgrace losing to those guys, but I just feel that Harold Graham, any other time, if he was fighting today, he'd be world champion. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, one of the very, very best, if not the best, not to hold that. Of course, the heartbreak against Jackson when he had him beat and went for the finish and was caught. Jackson with one eye closed. Everyone knows the story. And then he lost the title challenge to Charles Brewer as well. 3 fights in all for the world title, and he didn't manage to get over the line. Just finally on the undercard, we talked to Fraser Clark, didn't we, earlier on against Ebenezer Tete? Big night for him as well in terms of that, the road to redemption, the start of it.
It's a huge night. I don't really care what anybody says. There will be mental scars in Fraser Clark's mind because his jaw was absolutely smashed to pieces and it wasn't a pretty sight. So the question will remain now when the first bell goes, you know, whether Fraser Clark goes out behind an educated jab and tries to box his way into the fight and win on points. You know, I don't really see him going into the trenches and trying to get into make it a hard fight but again, the opponent will be looking at Fraser Clark and saying to yourself, you know, I'm going to send shockwaves down this guy's spine and I'm going to attack him and see if I can't get him on the back foot and send him into a shell that he may never come out of. So there's a lot of question marks going to be answered tomorrow from Fraser Clark in this particular fight because of what happened with him and Fabio Wardley. But I'm looking forward to Fraser's fight and I really think that he can come back and do something in the heavyweight division. I'm not saying he's a world beater, but he's already stated that, you know, he would almost certainly want to fight for a domestic championship. And, you know, that's probably going to be his level, you know, because obviously the heavyweight division is stacked with so many good fighters right now. And like I say, I think the joker in the pack right now is Fabio Wardley, but that boy is going to do some damage because he can punch and he hasn't got too many miles on his clock. So, like I say, you know, and Daniel Dubois against Usyk, you know, AJ's still floating around. Fury's probably off the scene by now. Who knows what he's going to do? So, like I say, the heavyweight division is stacked with so many good fighters. David Adelaide's another young guy that's coming through. So, yeah, there's some exciting times coming up in that weight division.
And I know we're judging from a distance. Spencer was sitting with Fraser, but he looked in a good place, didn't he?
Oh, he looks in a great place. Yeah. He looks in a great place. I'm sure Fraser Clark will be at his utmost best, and I'm hoping we do see some change in Fraser Clark tomorrow. So, yeah, listen, there's a saying in boxing, nice guys come last. So let's just hope he's got that little bit of dog in him, and he goes out tomorrow and he wins well.
Now, Lee Cutler's fighting Sam Eggington. Lee Cutler off the back of a good win against Stephen McKenna at the end of last year. Sam Eggington's rarely in a bad fight, that could be an interesting one over 10. That
listen, that could be fight of the night. Eggington is never in a bad fight, win, lose or draw. Yeah, I mean he might be a little bit shot worn now, but you know he's listen. Whoever wins that fight's going to know that they've been in a fight. So I just see him coming up a little bit short tomorrow, though.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Tyler Denny's also on the card against Elvis Ahorga. Denny, former European champ. We saw him lose against Hamza Shiraz, of course, last time. Ahorga does bring power and will look to catch him. So it's a really good card tomorrow night. Not just the main event, Whittaker and Cameron, but plenty more to get your teeth into. I have to ask you before we go, we're talking about predictions now.
Sure.
What about Ben and Eubank Jr. next week? What's your prediction there?
My gut feeling is that Eubank will win. I feel he'll just be too big for Conor Ben, and you know, again, speaking from experience, you can jump up 1 or 2 weights. You feel physically stronger, but the guys are that much bigger, and when you hit them with your best shot, it just bounces off them. You know, again, I've experienced this at the highest level. So a lot will depend on just how much of an effect Conor Ben will have on Eubank and whether he can sustain the level of intensity that is required over the duration of the fight. Because if he can't do it from first round to last round, you know, Eubanks knows his way around the ring. He knows how to pace out a fight, and he's got a naturally smaller guy in front of him. And, you know, I could see him taming Conor Ben quite easily.
Duke, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend the evening with you and to talk boxing. We love it both so much, don't we? To just sit and talk. We could last 6 hours. Steve Collins was great too, wasn't he? Absolutely great to hear his memories of the Petronelli gym as well. But don't forget, Whittaker against Cameron, the rematch this Easter Sunday on the talkSPORT network and talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. We'll all be glued to it tomorrow night. This has been Fight Night here on talkSPORT from Duke McKenzie and me, Dave Farah. Bye-bye.